Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Pratt, and as Electoral Area B Director for the Sunshine Coast Regional District Board, I will chair this public hearing. I would like to introduce SCRD Director Andreas Ties from Area D, Roberts Creek, who is in attendance as alternate chair to hear your comments firsthand. Sunshine Coast Regional District Senior Planner Yuli Seo will introduce and state the intended purpose of the bylaws and answer any technical questions you may have concerning the bylaws. The Senior Planner will also announce the number of written submissions received prior to the commencement of the public hearing, and among which the number of submissions in favor of the bylaws and those opposed. All written submissions received by the closing of the public hearing will be entered into the formal record of the public hearing and available for public inspection. SCRD Recording Secretary Genevieve Dixon will be recording your comments this evening. We don't have any other directors in the audience for this evening, but we do have our CAO, Dean McKinley, in the audience, as well as we have Bryce Beaton from our IT staff supporting us for this event. I'd like to acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is on the traditional territories of the Squamish and the Sechelt First Nations. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to the board respecting matters containing in the proposed Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 310.182/2019 and Roberts Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 641.11/2019. The public hearing with bylaw amendments were advertised in the August 27th and September 3rd, 2021 editions of the Coast Reporter newspaper. In response to COVID-19 and in accordance with the British Columbia Government Ministerial Order M192 to authorize local governments to hold public hearings electronically, this public hearing is being held electronically via Zoom and open to all members of the public. As the Sunshine Coast Regional District is unable to comply with public health orders by holding in-person open meetings, the SCRD Board has adopted a resolution for the continued use of electronic meetings without the physical presence of the public. This resolution describes the following measures being taken to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability in respect of the meeting. Number one, notice of the public hearing and instructions on how to attend the meeting are advertised in the newspaper, on the SCRD website, and on social media. Number two, the electronic meeting allows the public to speak, hear, watch, and submit written comments. Three, technical support is provided to ensure all technical problems are resolved to enable accessibility of the meeting and related information. And four, written submissions by all other means continue to be accepted by the close of the public hearing. At this public hearing, any persons present who believes his or her interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaws. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. It is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaws. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, except that they may speak again after those who have not previously spoken have had an opportunity to make a submission. The identity of persons who make written or verbal submissions will form part of the public record. When speaking, please commence your remarks by clearly stating your full name and address. Members of the board may ask questions following the presentation. However, the function of the board at this public hearing is to listen rather than to debate the proposed bylaws. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand in the webinar to indicate that you wish to speak. So you raise it with using the electronic function. If you've signed in from a PC device using the Zoom app, you can click or tap the raise hand button and a member of staff will reach out to you in the chat to advise that you've been added to the speakers list. And we've already started an extensive speakers list already. If you've dialed in on a telephone, press *9 to raise your hand and you will be added to the list, but we will only be able to identify you by your telephone number. And so when it's your turn to speak, the chair will say, the participant calling in from a phone number is up next. So please listen for your phone number if you have called in. Please be patient. There may be a lot of speakers, but we will get to you. When the chair calls on you to speak by name or by telephone number, you will be allowed to address the meeting. You will still have to unmute your microphone when prompted. On the Zoom app, mute, unmute is selected from the lower screen. On a telephone, the microphone is unmuted by pressing *6, but will be unable to unmute until given direction to do so. And our IT department will just be lowering your hand as they list you on the speakers list. So for anyone who is already raised your electronic hand, and if it has been added to the speakers list, our IT department is simply unraising your hand and putting you on the speakers list as you go. So when the staff moderator brings you in to the meeting, it'll often appear that the Zoom app has disconnected. This is only momentarily. You do not need to log out. You will be brought back into, you'll be brought into the meeting as a panelist and be allowed to speak. So please begin by stating your full name and address for the record. If you do not, the chair, myself, will interrupt you and ask you to provide this information. We are required to collect it from everyone who addresses a public hearing. After you have spoken, we will lower your hand if you've not already done so. If you wish to address the hearing again, once everyone else has had a chance to speak for the first time, please raise your hand again and we will follow the same procedure. After this public hearing has concluded, the board during a following open public meeting may, without further notice or hearing, adopt or defeat the bylaws, or alter and then adopt the bylaws in accordance with provisions of the Local Government Act. May I remind you all that tonight is your opportunity for input on the bylaws, and no further information can be received once the public hearing has concluded. Elected officials are not permitted to receive any communication or correspondence such as email or phone calls or written submissions after the close of the public hearing. Any further submissions need to be directed to staff. I will now ask our SCRD Senior Planner, Yuli Seo, to introduce and state the purpose of the proposed bylaws. Over to you, Mr. Seo, please.
Thank you, Director Pratt. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Yuli.
Great. Okay, so the subject property of this application is located in Roberts Creek and just north of Harmon Road. The size of the property is about 40 hectares, and the existing official community plan land use destination is resource, and it is proposed to be changed to rural for the south portion and parks to the north portion. And the zoning land use is proposed. The existing zoning is RU4, rural forest, and it's proposed to be changed to RU1, rural for the south portion, and PA1, parks and assembly for the north portion. And the existing subdivision district for the property is proposed to be changed from 100 hectares for the existing and to the proposed 1 hectare minimum for the south portion and 25 hectare minimum for the north portion. And all these proposed OCP and zoning amendments is to facilitate the proposed development of the property. And the applicant is proposing to create 12 new minimum 1 hectare lots on the south side of the extended Porter Road, and to donate an approximately 26 hectares remainder of the parcel on the north side to SCRD as a community amenity contribution in the form of a land gift. And the proposed bylaws received first reading in March 2019. A preliminary public consultation process was carried out by the applicant in coordination with SCRD staff during November and December 2020. And the application was also referred to agencies and committees for comment. The bylaws received second reading in June 2021. And tonight is the public hearing. And after the public hearing, a public hearing report will be provided to the board for possible further consideration of the application. And here is the proposed development plan. And basically it's 2 parts. The south portion, approximately 1/3 of the property, or about 14.3 hectares, is proposed for a 12-lot subdivision with a minimum lot size of 1 hectare. And the proposed OCP destination would be rural, and the zoning will be RU1. And the north 2/3 of the property, about 26.1 hectares, is proposed to be a land donation to the SCRD. The OCP destination would be, is parks. Zoning that is proposed is PA1, Parks and Assembly. And the subdivision district for minimum lot size is subdivision district J, minimum lot size 25 hectares. And the applicant also has considered a possible alternative plan. As you can see here, the dividing line between the land donation and the subdivision has been shifted, is shifted to the north. So the subdivision portion would be 21.6 hectares with the same OCP destination and zoning, and except the subdivision district for minimum lot size will be 1.75 hectares. The number of lots remain the same as 12 lots. And the north portion, which is the land donation portion, will be reduced to less than half of the parcel size, which is about 17.3 hectares. The OCP destination and zoning and the subdivision district remain the same as parks, PA1, and district J, 25 hectares minimum. And so far we have received approximately 46 written comments in total, with 34 in favor of the bylaws and 9 opposed. And with that, back to you, Director Pratt.
Terrific. We'll just wait for your screen. There we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Zeo, for that presentation. So with that, I'm going to call for a first time for submissions in the order on the speakers list. And so the first up we have is Cambria Logan. Once again, I'd like to remind you all to state your name and address for the public record. And we're just bringing in Cambria now. And so Cambria, if you can state your name and your full name and address for the public record, and you have 3 minutes to begin.
Cambria Logan, 2021 Porter Road, Roberts Creek. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, Cambria, we can.
Great, thanks. First, I'm going to just go off the cuff a little bit to reply to what Yuli just presented. A couple comments. First of all, the possible alternate plan, feel completely blindsided by that. We've not had any heads up about that possible alternative plan. That was not in any of the reports or the meeting notes. So just a heads up to all the speakers. Secondly, the proposed area that he showed did not indicate in any way the giant swath of clear-cut area underneath the power lines, which would be taken out of the nice, quote, parkland. And the total tally at the end of the slides of 9 opposed should be updated to 58. There were a huge number of opposition letters that were just dropped off at the SCRD. So 58 opposed by my count right now. Here we go, into my prepared speech. I own 5 acres in the neighborhood and strongly oppose this subdivision. I grew up on Leak Road. I walked down to catch the bus to Roberts Creek Elementary School every day. And 7 years ago, I was lucky enough to buy my own 5 acres on Porter Road so that my kids could have exactly the same amazing experience that I did as a kid. I love Roberts Creek. I love this area of Roberts Creek. I love the rural lifestyle. And the Roberts Creek official community plan was made to protect the values and the rural lifestyle of Roberts Creek residents. That's why we all live in Roberts Creek. We are informed citizens. We bought the land knowing the zoning and with the knowledge that we are protected against subdivisions exactly like this. There absolutely is a housing crisis on the coast. This subdivision is not the way we solve it. High-priced acreage does not help. We need high-density housing closer to city centers and amenities with a solid infrastructure plan to support that housing. Ranch and Leak roads cannot support more traffic. They are already falling apart. Sufficient well water is certainly not guaranteed. We are nervous. Both deep and shallow wells will be affected by the added subdivision. And that's even if new wells can find water, since the only water information we have so far is one test well, which was dug for groundwater investigation and was not productive. The proposal tries to make a claim that these subdivisions are in family with property around it. It does not matter that the southernmost RU4 property in Roberts Creek, that this is the southernmost RU4 property in Roberts Creek. It does not matter that there are 5-acre subdivisions on either side of the subject property. What matters is it is zoned RU4, and every person in this neighborhood signed up for that. Before it was clear cut and the lower half subdivided, we all called it the tree farm. We wanted to live next to the tree farm. We invested our money and our lives into this area, knowing we were next to rural forest lands. This is why we moved here. We purposely moved to an area which could not be subdivided into high density lots. The zoning is a promise to the citizens of how the land can be used, and the Roberts Creek OCP and Advisory Committee protects that promise. If this subdivision gets approved, it sends an incredibly clear message. For a small donation of young forest land, developers can steamroll right over the Roberts Creek official community plan. RU4 can be clear cut and subdivided to 2.5-acre lots for maximum profit. This is it. Do not let this first domino fall, because there is a lot more RU4 all across Roberts Creek and the rest of the Sunshine Coast. I believe in our elected representatives. I believe they will agree this land gift does not come close to justifying the decision to ignore the official community plan and the advisory committee's recommendation and set a precedent for rezoning. I believe they will agree this is not in the best interest of the majority of Roberts Creek residents.
Okay, thank you, Cambria. I appreciate that. I let you just finish there. You went a few seconds over, but that's okay. Thank you. And you're also more than welcome to put your name up to speak again as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We're just going to move you out. And next up on our list, we have Burns Matkin. And after Burns Matkin, we have Elaine Funderman. So first up, we're going to move Burns into to speak. Once again, there might just be a little bit of a delay while you're waiting, but if you can just start by saying your name and your address, and you've got 3 minutes.
My name is Burns Matkin. I live at 1920 Porter Road. I'd like to say hello to the chairperson here tonight and to our area representative and staff. I think we should begin at the beginning. The developer bought the property understanding that it was already RU4. And then, for some reason, with the stroke of a pen, he decided that he could somehow or other wingle his way into changing it to enrich him and to give the regional district more land, which they don't really need, and then to put all of the burden on the local residents. I see nowhere in the development plan of extra roads that would be needed for the extra traffic. The road from the Southern Harmon development is already falling apart. It's a mess. It's a pothole delight. It's chip seal. With the increased traffic, we're not only going to have a better roads, but we're going to have sidewalks. Our nice little stroll up and down the roads at night with the extra traffic means that we'll be dodging traffic and dust instead of walking and enjoying the atmosphere, an area which we all bought into. Our houses will be devalued because of this, and I believe that the regional district is sustaining a great deal of liability in the process, and I wish you'd think that through clearly. For example, if the water that is now on the Lower Harmon and other areas somehow is depleted by the development on the northern portion of it, the other side of the road, is the regional district prepared to put in a water line on Harmon Road to feed the houses? I mean, this has happened in court many times before. Regional districts then are on the hook for other things because of the decisions that were made that went against good advice. The traffic is also another one that could provide a liability to you. The regional district has used words like fairness and equity and justice on this. But the fact is, after this is done, if it is done, and I say no to that, what happens is we're left with the problems, the developer's left with the cash, and the regional district may or may not develop that parkland. There's no money set aside for that. The words best practices are used. We've seen in the past what best practices are. Our road, the Sullivan Road, is an absolute disgrace. The road down to the highway at Leach is an absolute disgrace, at Leak Road there. It's illegal, actually, in the crossing there. The slope is too great. This is not for any expensive housing. For residents, the aesthetics were part of the deal. We bought in because we trusted the OCP. We trusted that our representatives would keep the OCP. We trusted that people would not think that they could just simply roll over a zoning law to provide money for them and to leave the problems on the people in the local area. The people in this area are against it. I'll stop now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Burns. And once again, you're always welcome to put yourself back on the list for if you have any other remarks you'd like to make later. Next up, we have Elaine Funderman. And after Elaine, I have Peter. I have no last name for Peter. And then, so we'll start with Elaine. Elaine, once again, please state your name and address and go ahead, and you have 3 minutes. You'll have to unmute yourself as well, Elaine.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
There we are, Elaine. Okay.
Yes. My name is Elaine Funderman. I live at 1738 Lockyer Road in Roberts Creek. First of all, I'm extremely distressed at the board's ability to change applications, either at a public hearing or after a public hearing, as has been done in the Morrissey issue. And I believe that a legal opinion is called for. However, I am in opposition to either type of application that this proponent is bringing forward. Back in 2010, the board came up with a policy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the regional district by 7% from the 2007 level to by 2031. OCPs all up and down the coast were required with strategies in their OCP to follow this goal. The Roberts Creek OCP includes the strategy of focusing increased density in the village core and nearby, and keeping large parcels in the rural areas to buffer against the rural areas. The rural zones for private managed forest lands created for protection of our forest lands become Z zones back in the early 2000s. This was expressly to reduce the happening of urban sprawl crawling up our mountain. Urban sprawl going up the mountain, such as this proposal, is not an example of smart growth. Smart growth is not creating lots with 2 houses allowed on each, with possibly 2 cars for each house, possibly 48 cars on 12 parcels, going up and down the road when there's possibly no way to escape or evacuate in case of a wildfire. We have had one of the driest drought years in record here in BC. Wildfires have been rampant all over North America, Australia, Siberia. This is climate change, folks, and we have to remember that we need to mitigate the risks from climate change. I urge the regional district to support our OCP and not allow urban sprawl to go up our mountain, and to keep increased density, should it be required, in a village core, which reduces greenhouse. God damn, I'm really, really upset at the way this proposal has been changed at the time of a public hearing, and I'm going to seek a legal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elaine. I would also like to note, Cambria had mentioned that there were over 40 letters that were delivered to the regional district office today, and that is true that they have been delivered. So I would like to confirm that for any of the residents that are online that might be concerned that they had submitted a letter, but there was a stack of letters that was delivered to the regional district office, and we do know that it is over 40. Next up, I have Peter. Peter, we're going to bring you in. And if you can, once you unmute yourself, if you can give us your name and your full name and address, please. And after that, you have 3 minutes, Peter.
Yeah, hi. My name's Peter Darcy. I live at 785 Mansfield Road in Roberts Creek. I've been a resident there since 1986. I'm not opposed to the reduction in the 5 acre parcels. But that said, I'm somewhat surprised at the way this thing has taken off. For 30 years, I inquired about whether I could subdivide my property from 5 1/4 acres to 2 half-acre lots, and I was told repeatedly that it would go against the official community plan, and I was quite happy to accept that. And my position is quite clear. The owners of lots that are 5 acres and above, I think, should be free to choose. If you want to keep 5 acres, that's totally fine. If you want to get your property into 2 1/2 acre lots, I think that's also acceptable. I don't see this urban sprawl that's being described, because 2 1/2 acre lots, in my view, are still quite substantial. That said, I'd be very concerned to know what the effect would be on our water supply. And I think that was mentioned at the beginning by Cambria. My concerns are, how has this managed to come about when in 30 years of making inquiries, I can't offer 26 hectares of land as a gift? And suddenly we have a developer that's coming along to offer a gift to the SCRD, and their applications being entertained when mine was always squashed from the very beginning. I find that somewhat questionable. The gift of 26 acres to the SCRD is also troubling to me. I just don't see how that can be brought into consideration when we're talking about the official community plan. I really would be open to look at it further. I don't have a problem supporting it, but I would like to know that there's more study, more understanding of the impact of the water on the houses that are already ready in place. That's it from my side. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Peter. We appreciate you being here with us this evening. And up next, we have John Devlin. And after John Devlin, we have Frank Henning. Okay, so John is just going to get moved and allowed to speak. So John, once again, if you could just say your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Is this sound okay?
Yes, the sound is perfect, John.
Okay, great, thank you. My name is John Devlin. I'm the owner of Lot 7 on Harmon Road, now designated as 1717 Harmon Road. My home would be directly opposite 2 to 3 of the proposed subdivided lots on the north of Harmon Road. I am speaking in opposition to the proposed amendments. In my letter submitted to the SCRD, I mentioned several issues, but the one that I'm going to focus on for my talk this evening is water and well concerns. When I purchased Lot 7 Harmon Road in February of 2019, I was provided with a well analysis conducted in March 2017, which indicated that all well water parameters were at acceptable levels. That is, all parameters showed maximum acceptable concentrations or met aesthetic objectives or met operational guidelines for water treatment plants, as these indicators were set out by the Guidelines for Canadian Drinking Water Quality by Health Canada in 2017. After moving into my home at the end of February 2021, so about 6 months ago, the water quality was not satisfactory due to water color and staining in porcelain fixtures. Another water test was conducted to assess this issue. The results were returned in March 2021. In this second report, 2 indicators, turbidity and iron, had changed significantly from acceptable to unacceptable levels. Turbidity had increased 16 times, or 1,600%, and iron had increased by over 300%. Between these 2 water analyses, the one major development event that took place was the digging of the test well by the Sunshine Coast Regional District on Harmon Road on the right-of-way 10 meters from my property line and roughly 100 meters above my existing well. It is reasonable to think that drilling that well was the source of the change in the well water quality. My concern is that if the drilling of one well affected my water quality this significantly, what might be the effect of several wells being drilled upslope from my existing well? Will there be additional water quality effects or even water supply effects? I note in the report to the Planning Committee in June 17, 2021, that it was asserted bedrock groundwater exploration is inherently hit and miss. Therefore, securing access to a large parcel of land would be a good idea for the district. The suggestion that well drilling in the area is inherently hit and miss means that it may be necessary to drill more than one well, more than one exploratory well, in order to find one productive well for each of the 12 lots. This increases my apprehension significantly. So I believe that we need to do an analysis of the effects of the existing lots on the south of Harmon Road and how they've affected well water south of Harmon Road before we do any developments to the north of Harmon Road, which may increase. There is a danger of cumulative impacts here that has not been addressed in any of the documentation that I've been able to examine. I'm opposed to the application. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And if you do have more comments that you'd like to make on our next round, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and you will be added to the speakers list again. Next up, we have Frank Henning and then Alice M Coleman. So Frank, you're next. State name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Please go ahead, Frank.
Hi, Andreas, Laurie, and Genevieve, who has to sit there quietly. Good to see you. You can hear me okay?
Yes, Frank, we can.
Thank you very much. My name is Frank Henning. My address is 2991 Grauman Road in Upper Roberts Creek. You might ask why someone from Upper Roberts Creek would be speaking, and I think it's highly relevant that this type of proposal, which I'm speaking in opposition to, may well set a precedent which extends far beyond the properties which are directly affected immediately. So I'm very concerned about that precedent. I have 2 expectations of the SCRD. One is that you view things through a climate-based lens. I think that's not an unreasonable expectation, and that's my understanding that you do that. The second one comes from being a longtime creeker. We moved here 25 years ago. And we moved here very specifically because Roberts Creek had an official community plan. It was displayed in the general store, much to our surprise. And we thought a community that has a plan and a plan committee and displays it in the general store in that way is a good place to live. We haven't regretted that at all. But my second expectation of the SCRD is that you've got our backs in terms of protecting that OCP and upholding it. And one of my major concerns about this proposal is that it violates not only the official community plan, but it goes against the recommendation of the Roberts Creek Advisory Plan Commission that did not support this resolution. In a nutshell, I think I can summarize my two key points of my opposition with two words: sprawl and water. And both have been spoken to fairly articulately previously, so I'll make very brief comments about each. I think that the way to address urban development on the coast, and specifically in this area, is not to create parcels of land that have residences that are far up into Upper Roberts Creek. When we moved here, we didn't have the kind of climate concerns that we currently have. There's no public transportation up here. And so we've had to address the issue of not using our car by getting a hybrid. We've managed to use 2 tankfuls of gas in our hybrid in the last 7 months. So that's how we attempt to address that issue. The second one is water. We're really concerned in this time of increased concern about fire and dryness and extreme weather events that we have sufficient water. And I'm really concerned about what happens when we start digging lots of new wells in this area. I'll stop there since my 3 minutes are up. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much, Frank. We very much appreciate that. And feel free, if you'd like to say anything else, to once again add yourself to the speakers list. Next up, I have Alice M Coleman, and then I have Jane, and after Jane is Lex Hansen. So Alice M Coleman, if you can state your name and address and for the record, and then you have 3 minutes. Oh, Alice, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you.
Hi, Alice.
Thanks.
There you go.
Hi. My name is Alice Coleman. I'm a resident at 1921 Porter Road. The proposed bylaw amendment set before us tonight contravenes the Roberts Creek official community plan while having major negative implications regarding public safety and services and must not be approved. The RCOCP committee does not support the development of small lots above the highway adjacent to rural zones. The application also disregards the APC's recommendations and concern that it doesn't align with the OCP and climate change concerns. SCRD has never allowed a change of land use in a Z-zone area, and for good reason. Z-zone protects against urban sprawl upland and away from the highway. In the March 14, 2019 SCRD staff report, Jonathan Jackson, senior planner at the time, opposed this application. The proposed subdivision is outside the fire protection and SCRD water infrastructure, with the only access being along Leak Road, which feeds into Ranch Road. First responders would be cut off and residents would be trapped in the event of an emergency, such as a forest fire. Leak Road intersects the highway at a steep slope with no runout. The road is narrow in places and in poor condition. Highway sightlines are limited in both directions. There have been numerous accidents over the year. The winter conditions exacerbate the problem. increased traffic flow from the proposed subdivision will intensify the already hazardous driving conditions. Ranch Road narrows to a single lane in places and is not suitable for high volume traffic, making it unsafe for pedestrians, particularly children walking to and from the school and transit bus stops. Residents here depend on surface wells. The water table is already being drawn down by the existing subdivision on Harmon Road. Additional wells will further draw down and potentially contaminate the already precious water supply to the downslope properties. The residents who bought into the neighborhood loved the rural coast lifestyle it offered and felt secure the area would be preserved because of the Zone Z status. The recent development of 8 5-acre parcels has impacted the charm from the area. Amenity density bonusing was meant exclusively for the downtown core of Roberts Creek. The so-called gift of parkland would pose a liability to the taxpayers. Now it is a desecrated piece of land with transmission lines running through most of it and of unlimited recreational value. I urge you to reject this application and not betray the trust of your constituents. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alice. And we're just going to move you back into our gallery. And up next, I have Jane, and then Lex Hansen. And after Lex, I have Debbie Emilia. So Jane, if you've been unmuted, so if you can give us your full name and address, please, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jane Braun, and I live at 2222 Pixton Road in Roberts Creek. Do you hear me?
Yes, Jane, we do. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I oppose this application, and I've got 5 points. 1, the Forest Land Reserve is at risk. This application seeks to remove valuable land from the FLR, and this reserve is a very precious resource that needs protecting. We need the trees, and it acts as a buffer against residential sprawl into an area that, if developed, it will creep into the mountains and destroy the very precious wildlife habitats. That's my first point. 2, the OCP, it's in danger of becoming meaningless. The OCP is the governing document for this beautiful rural community, and it seeks to protect the area above the highway from suburban sprawl. What this application does, it really seeks to circumvent the OCP. And when a developer says, let's make smaller lots, it means that we increase the density, we double the number of people, we double the number of wells, we have less water, we have poor water quality, we have more cars, more emissions, double the amount of garbage, and we all know what the garbage collection has been like recently. It puts a push on the land that's not sustainable. 3, we're going to have rapid suburban sprawl. There is no doubt about it. This application is a precedent-setting maneuver. If it's approved, it will result in a rapid suburban sprawl in our precious rural community. The SCRD doesn't have, and we see this every day, the services or the infrastructure to support this type of development. 4, this is clearly not affordable housing. And 5, at the last minute, we get a second option. Now, this is new information. And honestly, it's tantamount to an abusive process. There may be a regulation that allows for it, but I'm telling you in the common law, this is not allowed, and it is the constitutional right of the people to speak to every issue. And what this is serving to do is to ban the public from comment. Very, very bad. You need to let the people speak. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Jane. And once again, if you would like to be added again to the speakers list, you can certainly raise your electronic hand and you will be added back in. If you have raised your electronic hand and it has been lowered, it means that you have been added to the speakers list. And for anybody who is on the phone, if you dial *9, you will be added in as well. So next up, we have Lex Hansen, who's been added onto the speakers list. After Lex, we have Debbie Emilia. So Lex Hansen, if you can state your name and address, and then you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, good evening. My name's Lex Hansen. I live at 1919 Porter Road, and I've been a resident here for 35 years. I am adamantly opposed to this subdivision and rezoning. Imagine you take a zone that has one house per 100 hectares and break it down to 2 houses per single hectare. Why wouldn't everybody else on the Sunshine Coast that has 5 acres or better want to do the exact same thing? From the get-go, the original Roberts Creek Community Plan, OCP meetings, etc., has been bulldozed. In every single case, there have been an opposition to this thing. Chief Planner Yuli Siao took the thing to the Roberts Creek Official Community Meeting on May the 20th, 2021. It was unanimously turned down, came back at it again on page 13 of the June 17th meeting, unanimously opposed. What part of no doesn't he understand? This is absolutely egregious to think that a zoning change of this magnitude could get punched through. I'd like to put it in, give you a little bit of historical context. When the first 8-lot subdivision went in, there was no signage. Nobody got a letter. It was totally stealth. We never knew about it until the trees started falling. It was Tom Wright's legacy. He was the dean of forestry at UBC, a chief forester, and set out to prove that sustainable harvesting on a large acreage was you could make a good living. All right, changed hands. They clear cut the thing. They took his legacy down. It had thousands of Christmas trees that were donated to youth organizations. The developer brought in an excavator with a flail mower and mulched all of them so there wouldn't be any scrutiny about what else he was doing. The timber, there was an excellent report that Cam Forrester wrote recently, which was supposed to be a game changer. However, in any 60 to 70 age class forest, you would find the exact same values. I'm certainly not against development in the right place. I've developed property and my feet have been held to the fire, rightly so, and I've been forced to proper BA blacktop standards. This is chip seal. I've got a sample here that's less than ½ an inch thick. One of the good neighbors spent the entire afternoon filling in massive potholes around this place. It really is a problem. It's not a joke. It's the changes here have been so fundamental from when we bought in 35 years ago. We purchased 2,300 trees, bare root trees from the tree farm. And as I built an access road in and power lines, we planted those trees. Now, if Sullivan punches up through there, it's going to take my late wife's Anna's a big chunk of her legacy out. And these are nice big trees. I would hate to see that thing go through. It's already been a disaster, and this is not on. This should never have been considered, and it should never have gotten this far. And we're going to count on our elected representatives to do the will of the people. The massive majority. What a stealth operation to have this on such a short notice and right after the holidays to have sprung this on us. We could have gathered many more signatures. I delivered 52 opposition letters. So Yuli Siao at the beginning of this thing goes, oh, look at all these people that are in favor and there's only 9 opposed. Excuse me.
Lex.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And as I said earlier, we did have confirmation that there were over 40 letters that were delivered to the regional district office today. So that's a recent update. So we do know that we do have more than another 40 letters as well. And with that, our next speaker is Debbie Emilia. After Debbie Emilia, I have Carolyn and then Christine Mutch. So Debbie, if you can start with your name and address, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Debbie Emilia, and I live at 1565 Clover Road in Upper Roberts Creek. Been a resident in Roberts Creek since 1979 and Upper Roberts Creek since 1996. I oppose this change for a couple of reasons. I don't want to repeat what other people have said before me, but I do feel that this, while it doesn't directly impact our property, it sets a dangerous precedent, as Frank Henning said. I'm also concerned about water levels, and I'm also wanted to just say that the process of not respecting what the OCP, who are our representatives as well, proposed is concerning to me. It kind of sucks, the process does. So I'm opposed to it. And again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I just think it sets a dangerous precedent. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Up next, we have Carolyn and then Christine Mutch. So Carolyn, just one moment and we'll get you moved in. Carolyn, if you can state your full name and address, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, hello, Lori. I do actually have, as Julie has, I do have a presentation I'd like to share. If I can share the screen, please. Hello?
Just hang on a second, Carolyn. I don't know if we have the capability.
If you're okay with it, I can bring her in, Chair.
Yep, that's fine. Carolyn, it'll just take us a moment. And of course, we're more than fine with having a presentation and presentation materials. They will be entered into the public record as part of this public hearing process. So just give us a moment and we're just going to bring you in, Carolyn, and see your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so just hang in there. And Bryce will just let us know when it's...
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay.
Okay, I do have share screen here.
Okay. And Carolyn, before you start your presentation, if you could just give us your full name and address, please, and then go right ahead.
My full name is Carolyn Mutch, 891 Sullivan Road.
Okay, go ahead.
I live on 891 Sullivan Road. My driveway is facing Harmon Road that used to be a forest, now looking like the Arizona desert. The rights were once denied permission to build a single-family home, where today the developer, Jim Green, wants 12 lots with allowance for 2 homes. The SCRD has never allowed a change of land use in a Zone Z. On May 13, 2019, the APC is concerned that this may create a precedent and inviting more developers on the coast to start submitting Zone Z application. On January 21st, 2019, the OCP stated that country residential zoning is more appropriate near the highway, that residential expansion upland away from services is a concern. In March 14, 2019, the OCP reiterates the protection of our forests and that a rural residential subdivision is not compatible and won't be permitted. Looking at a map of the lot subdivision, the APC says that these lots are surrounded by lots that are 5 acres or greater, because lots get bigger above the highway. What would stop others from subdividing now? Explicit letters from the OCPC chair, such as these ones, as well as the APC deciding not to provide a recommendation, are all clearly not supporting this rezoning. This application doesn't align with the Roberts Creek climate change goals either. Referring to the SCRD document, Our Coasts Are Climate, the OCP says that residential development should be in core, so people are going shorter distance, not ALR, not Z zone. Water shortage comes next. That is already a reality for our neighborhood. Our water table is lower every year. The APC on May 13, 2019 acknowledges that if every property is on a well, what will happen to water supply below with 12 additional wells? Also, what will be the plan for farm irrigation outside of the SCRD water infrastructure? Aren't the heat dome and the wildfires enough to take our opposing point very seriously? Safety comes next. This picture shows the borders of Sullivan Road completely covered in dust. A sign on Ranch Road imploring people to slow down. Extreme dust, health hazard for livestock, says the sign. The pastures overlooking Ranch Road, that used to be a sanctuary for the many livestock that are living here, are now seeing a constant traffic of trucks up and down. 40+ properties cannot access the highway via a tiny rural road. These two articles from the Coast Reporter dated June 2020 talk about the development on Largo Road and the denial to listen to the residents who campaigned hard to make sure Largo was not made a through road to the highway. They were not heard and a young man died. So I am looking up to our leaders, Andreas Tees and the board of directors, questioning their vision on how Roberts Creek will look like in the next millennium. Are we going to help protect its natural setting, or are we going to turn it into another suburbia? I strongly oppose the proposal to rezone DL1312. After the deforestation and the 8 new lots, Jim Green, we do not need more devastation.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, so Lori, I do have here 5 other residents that I'm hosting because they were not set up for Zoom. Should they just like start the talk right now?
If we do have a speakers list, okay, so you have 5 other residents that are with you right now.
Yes, they don't have the computer and they don't have the setup.
Okay.
I can add Caroline to the bottom of the current list, and then the next person can speak then.
Okay. So what we'll do, Carolyn, is if we can get, we're going to add you back into the speakers list, and then we will, because we have other people. We only knew that you were one person, so we're going to add your name back into the speakers list at the end of the current list that we have right now. We will make sure that all the people that wish to speak that are with you do have an opportunity to speak. So we'll just add you back in at the end of the speakers list for those 5 people that are with you right now that may wish to speak. So they will be given their time as well. Okay?
Yes, we are on standby. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Caroline's name will get added to the end of the list. Thank you very much, Bryce, for that suggestion. And we will make sure that everyone does get an opportunity to be heard. Okay, so next up we have Christine Mutch and then Angela Colville. So Christine, you're going to get allowed to speak. You can unmute yourself and give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, Christine.
Hello, I'm Christine Mutch of 1930 Ranch Road, Roberts Creek. I've lived here for 11 years. For the record, let it be known that I am opposed to the rezoning. We have several concerns, my husband and I, but due to the time constraints, I will only address a couple of concerns. The number one, which is the water supply. If this unprecedented rezoning is allowed, instead of 6 2-hectare parcels with 1 dwelling each, we will be faced with 12 1-hectare parcels with 2 dwellings each. How will this 4-fold increase in dwellings affect the water supply of the existing well-dependent residents of the surrounding area? Page 14 of the SCRD staff report states, quote, "There appears to be abundant groundwater supply in the area," unquote. As residents of a community currently in stage 4 water restrictions, this statement fails to instill any confidence that our area water supply will not be severely impacted. The other concern is that most of the properties surrounding this development are under the protection of the Federal Agricultural Land Reserve. We are approximately 5 acres in size, most of the properties. Many of these properties are presently raising livestock and growing food, some food sold in markets in the community. Allowing a development of this size will cause increased added stress in this precious ARR farmland with increased vehicular traffic and increased demand on that precious water. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And we are going to move you out. And next up, we have Angela Colville. And after Angela Colville, we have Jennifer and Bill Wells. And then I have a phone number ending in 0143. So Angela is up next. If you can give your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Lori. My name is Angela Colville. My address is 2022 Sunshine Coast Highway. My property backs onto the end of Ranch Road, and my family and I have lived there for 18 years now. For the record, this is my verbal strong opposition to this proposal. I walk my dog and run along Ranch and up Sullivan into the woods every single morning. And my first concern, as others have already mentioned, is the already increased traffic and the speed at which vehicles are traveling. It's getting increasingly faster. As others have noted, Leek, Ranch, and Sullivan are very small, narrow, and steep roads not made for any more traffic than already exists. These roads are also considered secondary side roads and are salted and plowed not so often, only when the highway is good during our winter storms, making the roads often icy and dangerous. My husband works for Capilano Highways and is very concerned about this as well. Living very near the corner of Leek Road and the highway, I've seen and heard many crashes over the past 18 years. I'd say 1 or 2 a year at least. And this is without development. When the sun is lower in the spring and fall, one cannot see someone who's turning left onto Leek Road when heading southbound on the highway, causing many rear enders. This will only get worse if traffic increases up Leek Road. I also have Leek Creek running through my property, which I'm also concerned about the water flow and the effects on that creek. So yes, I am strongly opposed to the rezoning proposal. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Angela. And we're just going to move you out back into the gallery. Up next, we have Jennifer and Bill Wells. And then I have a phone number that is ending in 0143. And then Carol Herder. So Jennifer and Bill Wells.
Oh, hello. Can we both speak or?
Well, technically you can both have 3 minutes each. But you'll have to each announce yourself separately, and you will be timed separately as well.
Okay. I'm Jennifer Wells. I've lived at 1952 Ranch Road, Roberts Creek for 41 years. I'm opposed to the zoning change on DL 1312. I moved here specifically because I wanted to live in a rural setting. We bought ALR land to raise cattle, chickens, vegetables, and kids. We wanted peace and quiet and thought we would always have it because we were surrounded in ALR and Forest Land Reserve and protected by the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan. We weren't made aware of phase 1 until the chainsaws were running, and now we're confronted with District Lot 1312 being divided into 12 lots. 12 lots equals 12 to 24 houses, which equals 12 to 48 vehicles or more, as well as traffic going to a park. Kids, dogs, horses, and seniors enjoy walking the little country road and wish to see Ranch Road stay that way. On page 10 of the SCRD staff report, June 17th, 2021, it says the Porter Road extension would provide vehicle access to CAC lands and the 12 lots of the subdivision and can divert non-farm related traffic from Harmon Road. But how will it divert non-farm related traffic from Ranch Road? I think all the traffic should have gone down Highland. The Porter Road extension concerns us because we have water rights on Leek Creek and East Leek Creek. Our well is near Leek Creek, so anything done above us affects us. I wish to see DL 1312 stay in the RU4 and Z zoning. Thank you for taking time to listen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jennifer. We are just going to reset the clock, and then if Bill would wish to speak, Bill will go through the same process. If you can give us your name and address again for the public record, and then you will have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm William Wells, 1952 Ranch Road, Roberts Creek. I strongly oppose any change in zoning of District Lot 1312. The effect it will have on the water and roads is a huge concern. I feel it will have a damaging effect on myself and my neighbors. We bought our properties knowing that they were not subdividable and have lived with it for 41 years, very happily knowing we were safe from growth because of the zoning and the protected forest around us. The Sunshine Coast can't support the homes and land with the important necessities such as water, fire protection, road drainages, or even garbage collection. So let's not develop our area too quickly and set ourselves up for further failures in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. We appreciate both of you commenting this evening. If we'll move you out. And next up, I have a phone number that is ending in 0143. You've been moved into the room, so if you can unmute yourself, state your name and address, and then you will have up to 3 minutes.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Douglas Fugie. I have been a guest here on the unceded Coast Salish lands of Squamish and Sechelt for 10 years. I've previously served on the OCPC committee of Roberts Creek for 3 years.
And your address, please, sir?
Lot 2674.
Okay.
Yeah, Roberts Creek. So the official community plan is an amazing document. It needs to get, a lot of recognition. It's nice to hear all the comments and how many people believe in it and the reason why they moved here. I think it's really important as far as building community. Those kinds of things are priceless. And so I'm specifically concerned about the fact that this land use designation is even being considered because of a couple issues. One is the precedent of moving privately managed forest land into developer hands. It's setting a very dangerous legal precedent. There's over 5,000 acres in the Roberts Creek area that's also considered privately managed forest land. And the other issue is the consultation with First Nations. Looking through the staff planning documents, there's not one mention of it. Not one mention of it in the forestry report about it being First Nations unceded lands. This is on the Squamish area. So it just doesn't seem like land acquisitions and trading land interest could be even thought about by the SCRD. It's not, and as a larger community, seeing the SCRD not recognize that, it's kind of really sad because they're supposed to be setting an example. So this development would, the densification issue is huge. It's not an area that should be densified. This is wildlife habitat, really, and we need more wildlife corridors, and to leave that as forest land like it's supposed to be. Otherwise, it just can't happen. So, I'm also considering a legal opinion because this has sprung up very fast, how this all came about like this. So I think it would be a huge liability to the SCRD to, move further down this road. And I also was speaking to one of the planners today at the SCRD who, when I brought up Indigenous issues, told me that they were married to a Sechelt band member. Now, that's none of my business. And I don't know why one of your SCRD staff is saying, like, somehow they know what Section 35 of the Constitution is, and come back with, well, I'm married to a Sechelt band member. That's a serious conflict of interest. Raises my eyebrows. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fugie, and we're just going to move you out. Next, I have Carol Herder and then Mike Allegretti. Hi, Carol, we've got you here. If you can unmute yourself, give your name and address, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, Lori. Nice to see you. I am Carol Herder, 1714 Lockyer Road, Roberts Creek. We feel that this hasn't been well publicized. Our group just heard about this all this afternoon. I'm certainly not as well prepared as some of the lovely speakers have been. Really, just listening to everyone, it sounds that this proposal has been knocked back already a couple of times. So I think it's already gone too far to come to this point. And so much of value has already been said in this hearing. I really appreciate everything Cambria had to say. And Cambria, I really respect that you took the lead in this and that you let us know today. And it sounds like you're really taking a leading role. So much appreciated. The respect of the OCP is very important. And I'd like to add that our regard and reverence for our natural environment goes a long way here in Roberts Creek. Peter's thoughts on subdividing his 5 acres to 2.5, I can appreciate that this rezoning would set a precedent so that all of us with 5 acres would consider rezoning. So certainly the precedence is a scary thing, and Lex Hansen mentioned that as well. In addition, I just want to say it's a serious impact on our ecology, which in these times, we should really be making every effort to preserve. So displacement of our wildlife's natural habitat, not enough infrastructure. And just for the record, we at this address are totally opposed to this zoning amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carol. And we're going to move you back into the gallery. Once again, if anybody would like to speak again, once everyone has had a chance to speak, we will certainly go around. I'll call for a second time. So while we're still going through our first round right now, next up, I have Mike Allegretti. After Mike Allegretti, I have Donna Sugar. So Mike, you have been unmuted. If you can give your name and address and go ahead.
My name is Mike Allegretti. I live at 1738 Lockyer Road and have been at this address for 42 years. I'm opposed to this proposal, and I think that what has been said so far really kind of sums a lot of things up. But what really absolutely I find appalling, and I find that maybe that the planning department is going a bit rogue on us, but I can't believe that we have 2.5 acre proposals, and that's what most people have seen. And we come to this meeting and, oh, you don't like the 2.5? We'll go to 5. And I find this absolutely appalling. It's called bait and switch. If a used car dealer does it, he can find himself in jail. And I really do not respect anybody coming to this meeting and showing 2 different proposals and then wants the public to make their comments on this. It is appalling. Now, just to add a little bit more things to the water issue, I've been living at 1738 Lockyer Road since 1979. I have lived on a shallow well all those years. 2 years ago, things got a little bit dicey. I had around 4 feet of water in the bottom of my well. Well, now I've got around 3. And next week, I get to spend somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 getting a nice 200-foot drilled well. We don't know what it's going to be, but that's what all the wells around me are. So think very carefully when you screw around with somebody's water. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allegretti. We're going to move you out. Next up, I have Donna Sugar. And after Donna Sugar, I have Carolyn, who has 5 people that are with her that wish to speak. So up next, we have Ms. Sugar. If you can give your name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Donna Sugar. I'm at 1076 Crow Road in Roberts Creek. I have been on this property since 1979. I'm going to follow up on what Mike Allegretti just said and others have said. The change of proposal to me would really necessitate postponing the public hearing, rescheduling with the proper advertising for the new proposal, because it's not appropriate to spring it on people who may not have attended if they had opinions about this. They might have attended if they had opinions about the new proposal and not the one on the table. So I really think there has been a breach of process here, and I think this public hearing is probably not legal. I also want to follow up on the water issue. I did send a letter and I did discuss my own experience with water. I'm absolutely shocked to hear what John Devlin reported about the changes in his water quality following the test well that was drilled near his land. This happened to us when it wasn't an SCRD well, but it was a neighbor drilling after our well had been drilled, and we had to drill again. We had to go another 60 feet because of changes when a well on a property across the street was drilled. So I want to reiterate that the water issue is extremely important and delicate. I have a couple of questions. One, and I'd like the planning staff to answer these questions. One, it feels as though the planning staff is assigning the opinions of the APC and the OCPC as if they're just one letter of opposition. These are people who are representing the community of Roberts Creek. Their opinions matter. And both those groups were opposed, and I'd like to understand why the planning department appears to be disregarding them. And my second question is, I want to hear what is permitted on PA1, Park Assembly 1, that there's a lot of discussion in the staff report about potential things that could happen on this land. And I'd like to know what infrastructure other than a park would be permitted in a PA1 zone. If the staff could answer those questions, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to go over to Mr. Seo to answer those questions from Ms. Sugar. Mr. Seo, over to you.
Yes, I'll be happy to. So before I answer your question, so I would like to make some clarifications. So I have 3 points to make. Applications do change during the course of the review process as a response to earlier public comments. The alternative plan as presented at the end of the presentation was only an alternative that the applicant wishes to share with the public. And he indicated that he is willing to consider a lower density option. And this is not part of the proposed bylaw that received the reading. It was only a alternative option that the applicant is willing to consider. And the third point is, so the Local Government Act does allow a council or a board to change a bylaw and adopt a bylaw after the public hearing without further public notice, provided that the bylaw, the change of the bylaw does not change the land use and does not decrease the density without the owner's consent. So those are the 3 points I like to clarify. And with respect to your questions for the PA1 zone, PA1 zone is a Parks and Assembly zone, and it permits primarily parks, recreation, public utilities, assembly, something like a church, and similar uses. And what was your second question? If you don't mind, repeat it.
My question was, it was more a comment about the disregard of the opinions of the APC and the OCPC. I found that surprising.
Yes. Oh, the staff report that was considered by the board at June 17 board meeting does mention does include the feedback from the APC, and also separate the Roberts Creek OCPC, and the public records for the public hearing will, of course, document every comments received, including the APC and OCPC separately. Thank you.
Chair Pratt, if I may take my 29 seconds remaining.
Yep.
Thank you. I just, it may not change the density, this new proposal, but it does reduce the size of the amenity bonus that is proposed. So that, I think, is a significant change. That's one comment that I would make. And I didn't see public utilities on the list of PA1 permitted uses, but I could be mistaken. Thank you.
Mr. Seo, did you want to comment on public? You've muted yourself.
Well, public utilities is usually considered a general use that is permitted in any zone.
Okay. Donna, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was afraid of that. Thank you very much. It does answer my question. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have Carolyn with 5 people there. So Carolyn, each one of the people will be given a chance to speak. Whoever wishes to speak may. And they just need to make sure that they're giving their name and their address, and they'll be given up to 3 minutes each. As you're just getting yourself sorted, we did have a question posed in our question and answer spot, and the question was whether or not where Andreas stands on this application. And I'd just like to point out that the board's role, so the elected officials' role at this meeting, is simply to listen. This is not part of this is part of our process, but we're not expressing our support or our denial of an application at this time. We are listening to the public feedback. So our time for discussing this application and making a decision at it will be at committee and at board after this process is complete. So this is the public hearing where we are listening to the public, have an opportunity to speak. So if you have not yet spoken for round 1, please raise your electronic hand. Or if you wish to be put on the list for round 2, please raise your electronic hand. We're taking those names now. So Carolyn, I'm just going to give you, if you're set up there for whoever would like to speak first, the first speaker, if you can give your name and address, and then you will have up to 3 minutes, and we'll move through the people that are with you attending. And Carolyn, I'd also like to say thank you very much for allowing other members of your community a chance to speak through your home. So who's up first, please?
My name is Chris Hill, 1953 Ranch Road.
Okay, Chris, go ahead.
I oppose the proposal for zoning change of District Lot 1312 North Harmond Road. I have lived on Ranch Road for 30 years. After looking at the proposal to change the zoning, I came away with a 100% disapproval of such development. I found 0 positive out of this and a long list of reasons why I'm against. I will list a couple of my main concerns. In the last couple of years, I have heard a dramatic increase in horn honking at the intersection of Leak Road and Highway 101. Cars are stopped on the highway waiting to make a left-hand turn, waiting for an opening, cars are backing up behind them. Impatient drivers. Sometimes a couple of cars back are trying to pass on the inside. It is a dangerous situation as Leak Road intersects the highway and there are cars approaching the top of Leak Road. Leak Road is a steep road onto the highway, and with ice and snow in the winter, Leak Road does not level off. And with increased traffic coming down Leak Road to enter onto the highway, we're at a much higher risk of someone sliding into you from behind, sending you onto the highway. Also concerning, I feel drivers turning off the bottom of Upper Leak Road will feel they need to take smaller openings in the highway traffic to get out when there's an increase in cars built up waiting behind them. Impatient drivers wanting them to hurry up and go. I've also noticed the speed at which drivers who do not live in the area have increased more than ever before down Ranch Road. That is a long straightaway. When you have a smaller group of neighbors, they have a tendency to be considerate and understanding on the road. When you increase the residents and visitors, it will become less personal and more of a situation where people want to just hurry up and get to where they are going. I've heard some of the concerns of others in the area in regards to water, fire exits, and wildlife spaces. I share and support their concerns. We must keep this area less densified as it is beneficial to all. With the increase of the new 5-acre parcels on Harmon Road, I believe we have reached our maximum growth. Any more and we will upset the apple cart. I am voicing my concern to protect what we have for the future. I strongly urge the rejection of the proposal for zoning change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. Carolyn, as you get your second speaker ready, I would like to note that there are some people that are putting questions in the Q&A section. If you have a question or a comment, you are to raise your hand, please, and bring that forward so it can be brought forward as part of the public record, please. The Q&A, it will be kept, but I cannot, from a process standpoint, those questions need to be put into the public record. So for any of the people that have put your questions, whether it be regarding process or other questions around this application, please put up your hand and bring them into the meeting, please, to have them asked and answered for all to hear. With that, I am going to go to the next person in Carolyn's room. Carolyn, if they can state their name and address, please.
Hi, Lori, Genevieve, Andreas, and Yuli. My name is Corinne Stones, and I live with my husband, Mark Goodwin, at 1898 Ranch Road in Roberts Creek. We live at the corner of Ranch and Sullivan Roads on 5.22 acres. Mark and I both would like 3 minutes. However, Mark can't be here tonight, so I'd like to start by reading his letter to the SCRD.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mark says, I cannot be with you this evening to personally have my letter read into the record due to health reasons. I'm a longtime realtor, retired now, and resident in this neighborhood for 17 years and previously a resident in Gibson's for 11 years. And I want to share a story with you. I had a client that owned 40 acres of land in the ALR at the top of Mason Road across from the grass sod turf farm. He tried unsuccessfully for many, many years to have his property rezoned. Ultimately, he sold the property with my help to one family that was permitted to build a single family home on the 40 acres. This met the conditions of the ALR zoning. In my opinion, this is a similar situation to what we're facing today. I strongly oppose the subdivision of this property in the FLR to RU1 zoning. I believe our Roberts Creek official community plans should be respected and followed. I'm also concerned that if this proposal gets the green light, that in the event of a forest fire or a house fire, that we do not have the resources to put the fire out due to the lack of municipal water, no fire hydrants in the immediate area, and a volunteer fire department that is 6 minutes, 6.3 kilometers away. Sincerely, Mark Goodwin. And so I can start now, or use some of his time too?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to add, There is such a rural feel to our neighborhood. Driving along Ranch Road, you'll see the cows, horses, peacocks at times, and sometimes deer and bears, as well as other wildlife, most recently coyotes. We bought here because of the rural ambience and bought into the Roberts Creek Official Convenience Plan, never thinking that 17 years later the RCOCP would be challenged. If these smaller lots get approved, what is stopping everyone else in our neighborhood from wanting to subdivide their 5-acre parcels, whether they're currently RU1 or ALR as we are? It would only be fair to allow that should this set a precedent. Now, I have an additional note here, and we'd like to both say we would like to add that we are in agreement with the reasons for opposition as outlined in our presentation put together by Carolyn and Ceci on behalf of the residents of Leek Ranch and Sullivan Roads, who are actively opposing the rezoning and subdivision of DL 1312. And I have a few seconds left here. I do want to say that a year ago, on December 13th, 2020, we sent a letter, and we don't see it in the collection of letters. So is it that those letters were not included? At that time, we said we felt strongly that Jim Green, applicant, has chosen this time to submit his application to the SCRD in hopes of the approval process will move along more quickly during this COVID-19 pandemic than would otherwise. As we're unable to get together with our neighbors for a group discussion at this time, and we're not able to attend a public consultation meeting at the SCRD on this matter due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we'd like to see this application suspended. So I'm just saying that quickly so I can get the words in. Have I been muted?
No, no, Corinne, I can still, no, you have not.
Okay, so I just wondered, like this letter of December 13th, I didn't see it in the public letters. Did that application just like bang go out and then we had to start again? I gave copies to Yuli and to Andreas, and I didn't resubmit it this year because we had done it December 13th, 2020, and we do really respect that we said at the time, we'd like to see this application suspended until COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, perhaps a rescheduled to spring 2021 or later in the year should COVID-19 restrictions be extended, would be more ideal for all parties involved. So we want to thank you for not pushing it through last year and giving us an opportunity to say. So just wondered where like all of our letters from last year, if they are attached to this file.
Okay. I'd have to ask Yuli on what the process is for previous letters that are part of a file.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, Corinne.
Yes, thank you, Jen. So the previous letters received will also be part of the public record for the application, and because they were received before the second reading of the bylaws, and so they were identified as comments that received at a certain period, and only those comments that received within the period that when the public hearing is advertised and until the end of the public hearing will be identified as records for the public hearing. So so they are documented separately, but they are kept in our record and could be retrieved by requests from the public.
Okay, so they're on file, but they're not part of the public hearing record because the public hearing was brought in after that letter that letter came in at a different part of the process. So correct. It's just anything after the board decides to do a public hearing. From that moment until the end of the public hearing is the record of letters or commentary from the public in that public hearing process. So they were received in an earlier part of the process, Corinne, and right now your submission now is part of the public hearing process.
That's correct.
Okay, Caroline, you have your next speaker there, please. So this will be speaker number 3.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Bernie Lamb. I live at 899 Sullivan Road for the last 16 years. So I'm just following up on the comment of the water issue. I'm a little bit in the industry because I do geothermal heating, and that involves quite a bit of well drilling. And I see the wells, how they behave different after a year or two. So I'm following up on the earlier participant of John Devlin, who just moved here 6 months ago and developed his 5 acres. And, the SCRD did a test drilling just 100 meters away from his property, and they said, oh, everything is fine. What I would like to say is 100 meters don't mean much. I've seen wells drilled much further apart or closer apart, and they had a totally different characteristic. Right? So you guys you need to do more testing, so we can be assured that we have enough water. And nobody ever mentioned firefighting tonight, right? What are we going to do up here? There will be no SCRD water ever supplied up from the highway in Roberts Creek. Can't be done, I know that. So we are all relying just on our well water. Shallow well, forget this. The earlier participant, Mike Lepke, says he is down Lockyer Road. He says his shallow well went down only by a few feet. Well, lucky him, because up here, we don't have shallow wells pretty soon anymore. We won't. So the deep wells are our only water supply. How can you, I mean, if this is going to happen, you're going to say, okay, you will get sufficient supply of water. You don't know that. We don't know. It might happen, or the water quality might change. Right? So really, nobody can say that. So I would wait with all of this, right? And say, hey, not even wait, scrap it. We don't have the water up here. We don't. Okay, that's on the water part. I mean, everything else, what's been said about traffic and all this, I'm totally behind it. It's a mess here, right? But for me, the water is the big thing, because I'm kind of in the field and I've seen it, what wells will do. So please assess it very carefully. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Carolyn, while you're getting your 4th person ready, I just want to remind everyone, if you would like to make a written submission before the end of this meeting, you can email it to planning@scrd.ca. Any submissions before the end of this meeting will be counted. If you do have a comment, please make sure that you are raising your hand. If you have a comment or a question, please raise your hand and you will be brought in as a speaker. We are just up next to Carolyn, your 4th person, please.
Hello there, my name is Chuck Scott. You hear me okay?
Yes, Chuck, and your address, please.
Okay, it's 802 Sullivan Road in Roberts Creek.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, I hope you bear with me for a second. I just tried to inhale my glass of water, so speaking is a little bit tough. Yeah, you know what, I want to tell you that, oh, sorry. Is that volume change okay?
That's fine, Chuck, go ahead.
Okay. You know, we're immediately below the original district lot 1312, and you know, I oppose the amendments to the official community plan and to the rezoning and subdivision. And you know, my wife and I have lived here for 21 years, and we were aware of the zoning, subdivision, and OCP provisions when we moved here, and all those things mattered. You know, and the way I see it now is that with this proposal, there's 2 main issues. One is the impact on local residents, and then there's the broader perspective, you know, the long-range planning. So, you know, there's numerous local issues, but because of time constraints, we'll just look at our water supply. So for nearly 20 years, we've had an adequate water supply. We don't waste water. We're very careful about our consumption. And until the subdivision, the 8 lots, the other portion of District Lot 1312, we had 5 times the reserve that we've got right now. Now, some people might argue that we've had hot weather. We're drought conditions. Well, over the course of 21 years, we've had hot weather before, and we've had sufficient water. So only since the logging, subdivision, and the drilling of 8 wells above us that we're now in really dire straits. We've got inches of reserve as opposed to feet. And that just is completely, it just coincided with that development. And so we're in, any property without water is, I don't want to say it's worthless, but it's obviously serious. The second thing is the planning, the long-range planning. We were aware of all those things, and it mattered to us. Never dreamed that this forest, that it could be logged off, but not that it could be subdivided. So I'm going to read something now just because of the time constraints. So what's the point of a plan if it can be easily disregarded? Our long-range plans matter. And, if the enticement, the community amenity contribution is the main focus here, then it simply becomes the cost of doing business. There's a fee to be paid by the developer to ensure approval. It was inconceivable to me that a developer might be able to buy a large property in Roberts Creek, log all of the mature forest, subdivide, and sell 20 lots. That's the district lot 1312. The fact that it's done in 2 phases doesn't really matter. Then move on and leave existing residents to deal with the repercussions. Now, where will the next project be, and what possible argument could there be to restrict anything if this radical change is allowed? What justification could there be to deny any property owner's request to subdivide? Would it be that the proposed subdivision is not consistent with the OCP zoning and land use rules? It'd be interesting to hear the rationale for allowing a developer to do something wildly inconsistent with the existing rules than to deny a local resident's request to subdivide and create a single additional lot. And this is especially relevant if a property owner wanted to create a 1 hectare lot, the same size as those being proposed above Harmon Road. Now, if this application is allowed, then we might as well eliminate OCP committees and just publish a price list. If a significant enough enticement or community amenity contribution is offered, you get the green light. Neighborhoods matter. We all live in neighborhoods on the Sunshine Coast, and all planning begins or ends with local neighborhoods. If this area here can be changed this radically, especially in such a short period of time, then no neighborhood is safe from major upheaval. This is not a gradual evolution of a coherent plan. Approval would be abandonment of a long-term plan, and it shouldn't happen. And I just very briefly just like to say that I understand that there will be some support letters. I just want to say that it's easy for somebody to support this when there's no negative ramifications. It's easy. But what if you got to live with the consequences? Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Carolyn, if you can get your 5th person ready.
Hello, Lori, we are down because Corinne and Mark shared at the same time.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you very much, Carolyn. We are going to move you out of the speaking queue and put you back into the gallery. I would, next up we have James Green, and then we have Scott, and that'll be, that's the end of our first round of questions and comments for the public hearing, unless there's somebody else who has not yet spoke for the first time. So if you have not yet spoke for the first time, and this includes the people that have put in the questions and answers, or the questions into the question, you please, rather than asking the questions as typed, please put your hand up and be brought in to ask your question into the public hearing. And just a second, Mr. Green, just hang on one moment. I have one other comment I'd like to make. It will not be tolerated for anyone to make disparaging comments about staff. There's some that have been made already. Please refrain from doing that. We are hosting a respectful public hearing here, and no disparaging comments regarding our staff at the regional district. It will not be tolerated. Any of your comments that are here tonight are to be regarding the amendments to the bylaws as written, as well as any comment, any technical questions that you may have. So with that, I'm sorry, Mr. Green, for speaking over you, but if you can please give your name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Sorry, that was a dry run.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, sir.
Anyhow, my name is Jim Green. My address is 679 Franklin Road in Gibsons. I am the agent for the landowner and developer, and I'm speaking in favor of the proposal. The content of this application was submitted in May of 2018. It was a result of a collaborative effort between us, the community, and SCRD staff. The SCRD criteria for this application was very demanding, as it was the first application to request a rezoning of land to be removed from the Forest Land Reserve. The Forest Land Reserve lands were private lands that were designated by the provincial government for logging or timber harvesting. That designation essentially lives on today with the current SCRD zoning on this property, which is forest management. This current SCRD zone allows for logging, log storage, sorting, and wood processing. Our rezoning proposes that the 100 acres be removed from the SCRD timber harvesting zone. We have proposed that 5 acres be contributed as public roads to the Ministry of Transportation, and that 65 acres be given to the SCRD for purposes that they deem suitable for the land. Only 30 acres of the 100 acres would be rezoned for rural residential lots. This application has generated controversy with some of the residents in the neighborhood. Their comments suggest that things should just remain the same and that the 100 acres should just be logged and done with. We disagree. This is a perfect opportunity to save lands from deforestation and the industrialization of lands currently used for community recreation in trespass. We all feel that the surrounding areas of our homes are perfect for us. However, what about the new and existing community members who also want to enjoy a rural lifestyle and have no options to join the select few who are already there? Change is coming and is here on the Sunshine Coast. We must insist that the SCRD generate some new ideas. New community members on Harmon Road will fill the schools, participate in our arts and recreation activities, and provide employment for our construction community. I would ask that the SCRD and the people on hand, the SCRD director for Roberts Creek, not only hear the comments that are being presented this evening, but that you read the many thoughtful submissions that support our application. These comments come not only from the broad Sunshine Coast community, but from neighbors adjacent and surrounding DL1312. These lots would be self-sufficient for sewer management and water supply. There will be no requirement for the SCRD to provide any water to this new community. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the SCRD staff and community members who provided their time to assess and contribute to our proposal. In closing, I would like to restate that this rezoning is for only 30% of the property. If successful, this application will provide the largest contribution of lands as a result of a development in the history of the SCRD. A decision to support the rezoning will also save over 4 kilometers of forested active community trails currently being used in trespass on these private lands by the equestrian, hiking, biking, and walking communities. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And we will be moving you back into the gallery. Next up, I have Scott, and then I have Nick and Susan Furzy. So Scott, if we're going to bring you in, and if you can give us your name and address, please. Once you've unmuted yourself, there you go. And go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now,
My name's
Scott.
Scott Avery, 2950 Lower Road, Roberts Creek. and I am dead against industrialized developments of this scope that have no consideration whatsoever unless they have some new technology to create water out of thin air that I've yet to see, because all of the developments, and you look at the 30% of the lands which are going to be developed and the 70% given to the SCRD as a gift, that contains the power transmission lines. It has cell towers within it. So it's already kind of they're already there. The water thing's the big one. I was part of the crew that developed the OCP as we know it today. I'm no longer on the committee after 12 years or something like that. And I've always found that the OCP, which to me ought to be something that the SCRD receives it and puts it into their bylaw 310 as part of the new wording for it right off the bat. But instead, most of these things have to go to the variance application to have, if somebody wants to try taking on something that the OCP already says, then you have to pay to get a variance and go through the public process, as opposed to it just being made the words. Actually, I'll just end it now. I'm tired. I've been sitting here a long time. I'm against it. The water is the biggest issue. Sticking with the OCP is another one. And as far as bringing in workers and bringing in community, in order for somebody to buy and or build a house, if they don't have a household income in excess of $200,000 a year, they can't buy into this. And if they, and if that's the only clientele, all the rest of the people that are all the workers and so on that are working in restaurants, everything else, it's not going to provide for them at all. It's better off as wilderness, because right now when you go down Harmon Road on the right-hand side, when Jim took me for a tour, it was like a moonscape down below, which I would say is probably the main cause and the headwater that started the whole thing on the Bonnybrook washout a year ago. And then above that, you've got the forests. I don't know. Moonscapes just don't cut it as far as water retention goes or anything. I got to go. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Have a good night. And of course, you could, for anyone who wishes to speak for a second time, or if you have not yet spoken for a first time, please put your hand up, your electronic hand, or if you're on a phone, press *9. If you would like to make a written submission before the end of this meeting, you can email it to planning@scrd.ca. Next up, we have Nick and Susan Furzy. I'm assuming it's Furzy, and then I have Suzanne Singer, and that is the end. So far, that's the end of our first round. If you have not yet spoken for the first round, please, and wish to, please make sure you put your hand up. But next, I've got Nick and Susan, and then Suzanne. Nick and Susan, please.
Oh, good evening. This is Nick Furs. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Nick. Please go ahead.
Good. I live at 1888 West Reed Road, which is just below the proposed subdivision. I must say I'm opposed to this application. I won't reiterate all the points that have been made, but I would like to comment water. There's a lot of people that have water licenses. I believe that's a BC provincial scenario on shallow wells. And I can't emphasize how important that is to everybody in that in the area. So please, I hope you'll certainly give that some strong consideration. There's been lots of other points made regarding access, fire prevention, the zoning. I have one question for Emilia there, the planner. If you're looking at 2.5 acre lots with the RU1 zoning, is this intended to switch from forestry into the ALR, or is that just simply is the ALR out of the question now? You just go into the zoning proposal for RU1. But could you clarify that for me, please?
Mr. Sao, over to you, please.
Sure. None of the subject property is within the ALR. So no matter what zoning changes, it will not change the status of whether or not the property is within ARR.
Okay, that's answered my question. Thank you. Little disappointed, but okay, I'll leave things at that. Thanks for your time, and I hope you'll give some careful considerations to all the comments you received so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And does Susan wish to speak as well? Susan?
No, I'm good, thank you. No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick and Susan. We'll move you out. So the last person I have so far for round one for people who are speaking for the first time is Suzanne Sanger. If anyone else has not yet had an opportunity to speak for the first time or does wish to speak for a second time, please make sure that you have, if you haven't already raised your hand, your electronic hand, please make sure you've raised it so that you can be counted. And Suzanne, I hear you have unmuted yourself. So if you can state your name and address, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
Okay, so I'm Suzanne Sanger. My address is 889 Chamberlain Road. I live in West House Sound, so I'm not directly affected by this development proposal, except that, you know, I'm a water user, and so I have to admit I didn't see this proposal until today, so I'm just getting up to speed, and I will apologize in advance if I'm asking questions that have already been answered in reports. So what I'm seeing when I look at this development application is, well, what I'm hearing is that the community doesn't feel like they've been consulted, and they're concerned about the precedent-setting nature of what's being proposed here. And what I'm not hearing is a really clear communication by the SCRD about what the trade-off is. And so when I look at this as a conservationist, I'm looking at, you know, 26 hectares of intact forested land that will be protected, added to another 3 hectares, so a total of 30 hectares of forested lands that will be protected in the Gibson's Aquifer recharge area. So that's actually something that I feel good about. I get it that the folks who live downstream might be uncomfortable, and I think there are a lot of sort of unanswered questions. And again, like, I'm not fully up to speed, so I apologize for that. But like, for example, you know, is the SCRD going to be drilling into, is this a deep well that will service this development area? Will you be drilling deep down into Aquifer 560, which is the aquifer that, you know, feeds the town of Gibsons and Granthams and Elphinstone? That's a question that I would have, and that I would ask the SCRD to sort of answer before you know, approving anything. Has the town of Gibsons been consulted on that? Because now we start to realize that the aquifer that underlies this whole area, it's providing water to a lot more people than we had originally realized, and now we have this new amazing aquifer mapping data that we, you know, have access to. And so looking at those sort of downstream impacts that affect more people than we had previously understood is something that's really important to me. And then also, you know, it's unclear to me whether or not the folks who live downstream from these, it's 12 lots, right? From these 12 lots, if they're on shallow wells, will they be affected by, you know, wells that are servicing this new proposal area? So that's just a question. Like, I just have way more questions than I have answers or opinions, to be honest. And I guess I just have one big recommendation, and it is that the SCRD undertakes, you know, mapping, monitoring, environmental and geotechnical review to consider the potential risks and impacts to, you know, the folks who live downstream, to the drinking water systems, including, like Scott brought up, the issue that when they logged off the first chunk of 1312, like it looks pretty clear that that's what resulted in the washout down at Bonnybrook. And so, there's major impacts of just logging this area. So I think it's a good trade-off not to log the top, to do really, really good quality development that doesn't affect, the natural assets and the ecological values on those 12 lots. But then, what systems does the SCRD have in place to ensure that the development is done well? That's kind of a big question. I've seen some developments that make me question that, honestly. Am I out of time?
Yes, Suzanne, I'm sorry, you are.
Sorry.
But
Okay.
you can always put your hand up again. But regarding the questions, I don't know if Yuli would have the information to answer those questions at this moment, or whether or not we can just take note of them. Yuli, I'd go over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we will take note of that, and I'm not in a position to answer technical questions that regarding engineering, but in general, the property at the size of 1 hectare, normally we will have a on-site water supply system, and the proposed land donation would be considered by SCRD for exploring groundwater potentials and possibly water storage, and the water would be for the broader community use other than individual private lots. And of course, the approval of the subdivision and the water supply and septic system on each individual lot will need to be approved by Vancouver Coastal Health, the Ministry of Transportation, through the subdivision process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Yuli. Next up for our first round, I have Lynn Gardner. After Lynn Gardner has an opportunity to speak, we are going to take just a short, I'm just going to look to Andreas, 5 or 10 minutes, just to a 5-minute break. We'll just take a 5-minute break after Lynn has an opportunity to speak. Just to have a quick stretch, because I just looked at the clock and realized we were 2 hours in. So we'll just take a quick 5-minute break after Lynn Gardner has a chance to speak. Once again, for anybody who would like an opportunity to speak, please make sure that you've raised your electronic hand. If you have raised your electronic hand and it has been lowered, it means that you are on the list. You can also email planning@scrd.ca with your submission prior to the end of this meeting. So we're going to go over to Lynn. Lynn, you have 3 minutes if you can state your full name and address, and go ahead.
Yeah, hello, my name is Lynn Gardner. I'm at 1427 Tanager Place in Roberts Creek. Good evening. I've just getting up to speed on this proposed development. I have heard both sides. I think in theory I am against it. A lot of people have brought up the water infrastructure issues that we have, and I think that's a big concern. I did notice, sorry, the last gentleman, I forgot his name, did mention that there was some water resources that could actually be shared with the wider community. I think that would be amazing information if that was really disseminated to everybody clearly. A concern for me is that the OCP seems to be just sort of getting potentially ignored and trodden over. I feel that Roberts Creek doesn't necessarily need any extra development or higher density. I'm very concerned about forest fire impact. I don't know about people here, but I've spent the last 2 months sort of worried, especially with that fire at the top of Lockyer quite at the end of June. It just feels like the place is already a tinderbox, and added density, added housing just increases that risk. One gentleman, Mr. Green, mentioned that, this would bring added, kids in schools and stuff. I feel our schools are already beautifully vibrant as it is, as is our arts community here. And there are already plenty of construction jobs already. I don't think that argument really holds weight. Anyone that's tried to get any renovations or even minor construction done know that all the contractors are super busy. So I don't feel that, and in fact, contractors that I've spoken to say that there's no houses for their team to live in. So I feel that development on the coast should really be focused on affordable housing in more appropriate areas rather than these, presumably they're going to be fairly expensive, I don't know, 2 million and up properties that aren't really going to provide housing for people that work in restaurants and people that work in construction and so on. So that's it really. I don't know if the forested land can be protected without having to sort of do this development, which I see as somewhat unnecessary. I think that's all of my points. Oh, no, there was one final point, that if these are moved to RU1 zoning, and then there's a proposed rezoning of RU1 to potentially allow campgrounds to happen. As you know, there's the 1220 Lockyer. That then could increase density even further on top of these RU1 lots. So it all just turns into development upon development and increased density. And I don't think we have the infrastructure to necessarily support that. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lynn. So with that, we are just going to take a quick 5-minute break, just for everyone to have an opportunity to stretch their legs. And we will be back at 9:11 to continue this public hearing. Please make sure that you have raised your electronic hand if you have not yet already. And you can always email planning@scrd.ca to have your submission counted prior to the end of this meeting. Just to note, this is just a brief 5-minute break. So see you back at 9:11. Okay. Are we good to go? Do we have Genevieve back too?
Everything's good from IT.
Okay. I've got Genevieve back. Excellent. Okay. I hope everyone had an opportunity. I'm sorry, I would have done a break a little bit earlier, but I didn't realize. I looked at the clock and there you go. We're at 9. So, okay. So IT, do you need to count us down or can we just go ahead?
Just carry on. I didn't stop the stream.
Beautiful. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Bryce. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call a second time for further submissions for the public hearing for District Lot 1312. So the next up on our speakers list, I have Peter, and then I have Lex Hansen. So Peter, we're just going to bring you in and allow you to speak. So Peter, are you there?
Yeah, hi, Chair.
Once again, because this is the second round, we do need you to reintroduce yourself along with your address again, please. And then
Chair,
you will.
I think it's just a technicality. I didn't put myself up for a second round. I'm following the meeting, but I certainly didn't put myself up a second time. So okay. I'll just make you aware of that.
Okay.
My apologies. I thought I saw your hand go up. I'll take you out.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, okay, that's great. Okay, so next up I have Lex Hansen, and then Cambria Logan, and then Elaine Funderman. So we have Lex. As soon as you have unmuted, you will have to reintroduce yourself along with your address, and then you have another 3 minutes.
Good evening, thank you. My name's Lex Hansen. I live at 1919 Porter Road, and I wanted to give this a little bit more historical perspective. On a hot summer in 1906, the leak fire began on what is now Bill and Jennifer Wells's property. It spread across the entire flank of Mount Elphinstone, burned down flumes, sawmills, barns, houses, and it took the entire winter to put it out. I was quite surprised that the MOTI, the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, didn't insist on the first 8-lot subdivision that there was a second exit for any of the people up here. That was a massive forest fire 115 years ago, and we're setting ourselves up for another one with the kind of weather that we've had this summer. Fortunately, we haven't had a White Rock Lake fire, but someday it's coming. It's shocking to me. Also, I was surprised that any of the input from the limited time that we have had to raise objections previously haven't been recorded and are not going to be part of the record. That seems extremely unfair to me, although we can certainly submit them again. There's unanimous opposition against this thing. There's only one neighbor that is in favor of it out of 9 out of 10 aren't. The first of the 8-lot subdivisions that went in, and everybody bought in good faith going down Harmon Road, is a massive marijuana grow operation that's extremely unsightly. There are 4 residences on it. They have numerous visitors, and that's true for a few of the other places, but it's absolutely unfair for the rest of us. So now in terms of traffic and in terms of density here, the SCRD isn't enforcing their own rules. Every single one of these places, with minor exception, have 2 plus 4, 3 places, all with visitors. So it's not simply the fact that the next 12 lots are going to have 24 places on them. They could have far more. And what's to say that they're not going to look like what has already existed, which is fairly a ghetto coming into here and has lowered all our property values. I think it's absolutely unfair. I don't think it's being enforced. I think if this did turn into a park, the SCRD has limited resources to maintain what they have already. Why wouldn't this be another tent city? I just don't see this as a good thing. If the 30 acres is developed into 12 lots, obviously that's going to be clear cut. You're going to have to. And even following fire mitigation guidelines nowadays, you need to clear out around your house. So I just don't see it. The power line totally degrades it. I think that the clear cutting of that district lot had a major impact on the condemnation of houses at Bonnie Brook and the massive washout. This thing's been a mess. It has really been mishandled. And we are counting on our elected representatives to shut this thing down. This is the most radical proposal that's ever happened. It's a land grab. It's greedy. There's nothing in it for the SCRD that's going to benefit anybody. The whole thing's wrong, dead wrong. And we're going to count on you guys, the elected officials, to shut it down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lex. And once again, I'd like to point out that the letters that were received prior to the public hearing process are still part of the public record. They're just not part of the public hearing record. Okay, so just wanted to clarify that if you did send in a letter at a different part of the process, it's included as that part of the process. Public hearings are have a very clear legislative framework, and so it's just the letters that are received during that public hearing process and the submissions that are received during the public hearing process that are part of this part of that process. So next up, I have Cambria, and then I have Elaine Funderman, and then I have a phone number ending in 0143. So Cambria, we have brought you back in. So once again, if you can reintroduce yourself along with your address, and then you have up to 3 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Cambria Logan, 2021 Porter Road. So I'm just going to go off the cuff here with a couple of thoughts during this meeting. First, I just want to make it clear to everyone the density change that we are talking about in this neighborhood. So if you drive up little tiny Leak Road, it's so cute, and a long ranch road with all the trees overhanging, the nice little single lane road. We're not talking about adding 10 to 20% increase in lots or in houses. We're talking about more than double of our community. So if you include all the new 8 lots, which aren't even really all inhabited yet, and the new proposed 12, we're more than doubling our community, all down tiny little ranch and Leak. So it's a huge thing. It's not like a 10, 20% increase. It's more than double. That's point number one. Point number, and also to say we are, because of water, etc., we are at max capacity. Sure, we're a rural area, but we are already at max capacity. We accepted, we have those last 8 lots along Harmon, and that's it. We're maxed out for this rural area. Item number 2, and I'm to Andreas, and I'm sure you're going to do this, but as you read through the letters in favor of this proposal, I would urge you to just take a look at the address of those individuals, and you'll notice that I took a quick peek through everything that's posted. There's nobody in Roberts Creek in favor of, and there's perhaps 2 in favor of in Roberts Creek. And you'll also notice there's quite a difference in the in favor letters to the opposition letters. The in favor seems to be a 1 or 2 sentence of I'm in favor of, and the opposition seems to be nice handwritten, really heartfelt messages. As I'm sure you do, I just urge you to just read those in favor letters and just take a peek at those addresses and who they're from. Item number 3, the opposition letters that we put in 2020 that you have said are going to be part of the official record, but not part of the public hearing. Great, that's good that they're all on record. We did try and photocopy as many of the old stuff as we had when we dropped it off to SCRD today. So just for the folks listening, hopefully we have also gotten that 2020 stuff into the public hearing record. Really when this was brought to our attention in 2020, we put in those opposition letters, we kind of thought it was squashed. We kind of thought it was done. And then all of a sudden it pops up in the Coast Reporter, and we're all trying to scramble to get our thoughts down for the public hearing. My last comments are just on the whole public process of this whole thing. Having this hearing after the holiday, that we didn't really see anything in the Coast Reporter until last week. I don't think there was anything even in the Coast Reporter this week. There should be a notice. Thank you for Elaine Funderman actually putting in her comment there so we could see it in the notice to the editor. And then the signage for this actually happening, the big billboard that says, hey, there's a subdivision happening. It should have been put at the mailbox. It was put halfway down Harmon Road. Nobody sees that. Nobody lives down Harmon Road. John Devlin's the only one. So just poor process in notifying the public overall. Thank you.
Cambria, just would like to reiterate that the public hearing bylaw amendments were advertised in August 27th and September 3rd editions of the Coast Reporter newspaper, and the signage. It has to be on the property. I'm not sure beyond that. I can check into that for you regarding that process, but my understanding, and Mr. Sao, if you could just comment on where a signage for, I believe it has to be actually on the property, does it not? I'm not sure the legislative requirement on that. That's a different level of expertise. Yuli?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Jess. So the signage is to notify the surrounding neighbors of the application in general. Is not particularly to notify the public about the public hearing. And the planning procedure and fees bylaw indicates that it has requirements for the size and of the signs and location, and it has to be on the property and generally adjacent to a public road. Then it will be visible to the public. And the applicant has provided a picture of the sign indicating the sign is meeting these requirements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cambria. Next up, I have Elaine Funderman, and then the phone number that ends in 0143. And I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but we will bring you back in after Elaine. And then after the phone number, we have Jane. So Elaine, once again, if you could please reintroduce yourself along with your address, and you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
My name is Elaine Funderman. I live at 1738 Lockyer Road in Roberts Creek. And I would like a bit of clarification. I was a bit blindsided at the beginning of this public hearing. I think I was speaker number 2 when the planner flashed a slide of the second option for the public hearing and for the board to consider after the public hearing. I wonder if we could see that slide again, so we could actually find out what the proposal is at this point. Or if we have 2 proposals, one the original and one a new one. Could Yuli show us that slide?
Okay, just hang on one moment, Elaine, and we'll get Yuli, if you could bring that slide back up, please.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, can everybody see the screen? See my screen?
So, Yuli, would you explain to us what size these parcels are?
Okay, yes, I would like to reiterate, as the applicant has mentioned earlier, this is only a alternative, a possible option that he is willing to consider. It's not part of the original proposal or bylaw. And as he indicated, he will probably just go with the original proposal at this point. So and also the applicant also has a right to make representation of his opinions in response to public feedbacks. So this is one of the this is a alternative option that he asked staff to share with the public. So the lot size for the subdivision in the south is about 1.75 hectares, which is the minimum lot size, and the number of lots remain as 12. And this will reduce the amount of land that is proposed to be donated to SCRD to 17.3 hectares. And the OCP and zoning and subdivision district will remain the same for the land donation part. And the only difference for the subdivision part is the subdivision district is increase the size from 1 hectare to 1.75 hectares.
So we're increasing the size of the lots. We're decreasing the size of the community amenity. So the value of the community amenity becomes less attractive to the regional district because more of the community amenity is taken up by hydro right-of-way, transmission lines, cell tower, proposed new highway route, and what else? I don't know. And it's a tree farm still, unless the regional district decides to turn it into a park. What are the advantages of this to the regional district or to the people of the community? This is a question to you.
Well, as indicated in the earlier staff report, staff recommend that before accepting a land donation, a cost and benefit analysis, as well as appraisal and a development plan to be prepared to evaluate the use and the possible value to the SCRD before accepting the land donation.
Mm-hmm. And is this the first time that the board will have seen this option, or has the board been talking about this and it wasn't in the advertisement that came out in the paper? And by the way, Lori, I did not see the ad in the September 3rd Coast Reporter, and I looked very carefully because I was looking for my letter to the editor as well. And several other people said, it's really lucky that I wrote my letter because there was no ad. So maybe we all missed it. I don't know. I'll take another look.
Okay.
So Yuli, does the board know about this proposal before tonight?
As far as I know, this has not been presented formally to the board, and let's we can consider it is a representation made by the applicant, just like everyone else at this meeting. He's entitled to make a representation to present a alternative option to be considered.
Sure, but Mr. Green didn't speak to this option. He just considered the one that the public had seen. I'm wondering if this public hearing is really very good for the community to have consultation about the process or with the board when we don't even know what we're actually discussing. You know, everybody was speaking to those small lots, and now here we have big lots with a smaller amenity. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Anyways, that's my comment. And another thing, the question I have is, I'd like some clarification. Letters that are actually sent to the planning or to the board are only actually part of the public record if they are sent after the first advertisement in the paper or not?
Yes.
So and that's part of the public hearing process. This is the public hearing section of the of this process, Elaine. So it would be, I guess it would be technically, it would be anything from the time that the board adopted the recommendation from the planning to go to public hearing. So anything from that point, when it officially becomes part of the public hearing process until the end of tonight's meeting. That's all of the correspondence that is considered as part of the public hearing process.
Okay, so if the letters are sent to you after a board meeting which says we will go to public hearing. Then they become letters which are accepted as part of the public record.
As part of the public hearing record. Anything that's sent before that is kept on file for that part of this that part of the process.
That's right. And will the board see those letters, or will they only get a summary from the staff? The last public hearing in Roberts Creek, the staff created a lovely report, but it only had summaries of letters, summaries of what people had written, and it did not have the letters attached. And you lose a lot of nuances when you only have a little summary.
Yes, all written submission will form part of the public record and be considered by the board.
They actually get sent to the board.
Yeah, they will be included, or they will be as appendix to the public hearing report.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Then in closing, I'd like to urge the board to reject the proposal in whichever form it actually comes to a vote before the board, which reject this proposal, which increases density in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think the board should encourage build out in the village core of Roberts Creek and maintain large parcels as buffers to our private managed forest lands. That is my summary statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Next up, we have the phone number ending in 0143. If memory serves us correctly, it's Douglas that's on the line there. And after 0143, we have Jane and then Frank Henning. The phone ending in 0143, once again, if you can reintroduce yourself along with your address, please.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Douglas Fuji. My address is lot 2674 Roberts Creek. And yeah, I'd just like to apologize if you were referring to my comments as disparaging the staff. I in no way meant to, I just was relating my experience today with speaking with staff so that it was on the record. Anyway, I've just wanted to again say I'm opposed to this change in zoning, and I've been listening for 2.5 hours to all these very intelligent, well thought out comments from neighbors and community of where this is taking place. And these are all, I feel, very relevant and very, they're true, you know, it's real stuff. So I just like to thank everyone too that put in this time, 2.5 hours out of their evening to make these comments. And during this 2.5 hours, there has not been one supporter of this proposal except for the actual applicant who phoned in to be part of the public meeting. Not only does the applicant have their application, but they're phoning in on behalf of themselves. So without, I didn't hear one other support for this. So I would just urge, again, the directors and staff to not waste any more time on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas, and I appreciate the apology as well. There's been a few comments and written submissions made, so it was not the comment I made about disparaging staff was not made at you. It was made in general for comments that have been coming in. Up next, I have Jane, and then I have Frank Henning, and then Carolyn. So Jane?
Hi, it's Jane Braun at 2222 Pixton Road in Roberts Creek. I just have a question. I presume that with respect to the public hearing, the directors don't have the time to listen to the entire public hearing. Is that correct, other than those here tonight? I mean, you guys, but yeah, the other directors who are going to vote, they don't listen to the entire public hearing online, I presume. Is that correct?
It's up to each individual director if they choose to or choose to read the summary after. So it is available for every director. So whether they're here or not, they certainly, as any other member of the public, have that available to them.
Okay, and the you know, generally my understanding in, you know, local governments and public hearings is that the public hearing should be summarized by an unbiased individual or group of individuals, because that's what the directors are getting for their voting purposes. So who does summarize the public hearing for the voting directors?
Our staff does. Our staff are unbiased. They work for the community as a whole. And so they are unbiased members who are the ones that are making these reports.
Oh, okay. Like who collates the information? Is it the planning department?
It would, I would have to, I don't know exactly, but I would imagine it would be the planning department and the planning department staff that would be collating all of this information, as is the process with any of our public hearings regarding any planning processes.
And then they summarize the information that the board gets, I presume.
Yeah, and any written. Sorry, Jane, you just cut out there a little bit.
No, I just was wondering, they're the ones who summarize all the information in the public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, they and then any of the written submissions are also become part of the public record as well. Yuli, would you like to address that a little bit further?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Staff will summarize the verbal representation that is made at the public hearing, but the written submission will be included as in the original form with the redaction of private information like phone numbers and email address, etc.
I see. So the body of the language of the letter goes to the directors for reading.
Yes, it will.
It is not redacted in any way.
No, that is not redacted. Only private information, as I said, like phone numbers and email address.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. Any further questions? Okay. Next up, we have Frank Henning and then Caroline. And after Caroline, we have Donna Sugar. So Frank Henning.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, Frank. Once again, please reintroduce yourself with your address, please. And then you have 3 minutes.
Frank Henning, 2991 Grauman Road. Normally I would do this a little bit after the meeting when we're eating cookies and coffee, but I'd just like to say thank you, Laurie, for being chair and staying so level-headed during this whole thing. I know there are a lot of strong feelings out here. I wanted to touch briefly on my awareness of what was going on. I found out 2 days ago that this whole affair was in process and that a public hearing was to be held. And quite honestly, I was absolutely gobsmacked by that because of the fact that it was in opposition to the official community plan. And not only that, but the advice of the Roberts Creek Advisory Plan Commission had been basically, it seems from my perspective, ignored about this. This is one of those things that I can't understand why I did not have awareness of it, but I want to emphasize the fact that these are unusual times. The COVID circumstances consume a large percentage of people's awareness. And listening to other speakers during the meeting tonight, I became very aware that I was not the only person who normally takes a very strong interest in what's going on in the Roberts Creek community, especially if it involves the community plan. I was not the only person who had no idea that this was at this stage. And suddenly we're presented with a project that goes against, as far as I'm concerned, wise climate change action that goes against the community plan, that it seems to ignore the advice of the Planning Commission, and yet it's almost to the point of being approved by the board. That's alarming to me, and I want to be sure that you understand that it's alarming to me. And that's by way of prefacing my initial reason for speaking again, which is to say, I want to be sure that I know exactly what's happening from this point on so that I can be involved in it. I'm going to be at that board meeting and listening very carefully to what goes on because I'm not very happy with the process that's gone on. And I take responsibility for not being aware of what's been happening. But I think you as a board need to be aware that this is an unusual time, and many people are not aware that this was going on and was at this stage of development. I count on the OCP to protect us from this kind of thing and to give us a lot of advance warning about it. And I'm really sorry that we're in a position of being in this position without having had a lot more notice that this was going to happen. So I think that's all I need to say about it. Thank you.
Did you want to ask a question?
Please be sure that everyone who's attending this meeting understands the specific events and dates of what's transpiring next. That can be by email, or you can do it in closing or whatever. I'm not sure I understand everything that happens from the stage on and how we can participate further.
Okay, so Yuli, do we have an estimated time when, after the public hearing, when the report of the public hearing will be coming back to the planning committee and then to board?
Well, thank you, Chair. So we'll do our best to compile all the comments received and consider the comments. And so because there are a large number of them, so it may take some time before we can get a report prepared. So we'll do that as soon as we can.
Okay. It definitely not in September because it won't be. We've already had our planning meeting for September. Or is that? Yeah, we had our planning meeting for September last week. October may be a little bit too soon. So November, December, or are we looking next year?
Yes, as I said, we'll do our best.
Okay. Okay, Frank, we will endeavor to make sure we can get the communication out or disseminated to the community when that timeline is it is very difficult when there is such a volume of communication and correspondence that's come in regards to a public hearing, in order to make sure that an accurate reflection of the public hearing as well as all that information is collated. So we'll do we'll make sure that you're aware of the timeline and either through staff or through the director. But it's definitely not going to be in September. We'll tell you that. Okay.
Okay, I was not pushing for a quicker response. It's really being aware of what the events are and when they happen.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to move you back into the gallery. Next up, I have Carolyn and then Donna Sugar. So Carolyn, you are here. You can unmute yourself. Is it you or another member of your group that would like to speak? Or
this is actually not Carolyn.
Okay.
It's Chuck Scott.
Okay, Chuck, go ahead. If you can once again reintroduce yourself along with your address, please.
Okay, Chuck Scott, 802 Sullivan Road.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your patience too, and staying attentive. I had no idea this was going to run this long, so appreciate you being attentive. Just a couple of quick things, and part of it is in response to Suzanne Singer's question earlier about the aquifer. And at our property, the shallow well that we have is fed by a small stream called Higgs Brook. Now, Higgs Brook is fed by a spring partway between our property and Harmon Road. So it depends on excess water in that aquifer. At this time of year, it's critical to have that excess water gurgling out of the ground. So that's a partial response to her query. We do have provincial water rights, as Nick had referred to earlier, and something that I want to look into with the provincial ministry, whose name is way too long now. Another brief thing about water is the flip side of it. In the winter, after the subdivision of the 8 lots on the southern portion of 1312, part of Leak Road washed right out. A good portion of Leak Road washed out, and the highway flooded twice, and that had never happened in all of our 21 years. Well, it wouldn't be 21 years, but in all the time we've been here. Just another note about Higgs Brook. The ditch on the north side of Harmon Road now feeds directly into Higgs Brook. And I think about all the restrictions placed on people with regard to their neighbors, like whether it be, lot setbacks or building heights. But if you do things with their water, like we now have to be concerned about E. coli and things like that. So anyway, enough about water. There was a reference to some of the supporters locally. I actually believe that I saw 3 Roberts Creek supporters that could be affected by it. One is actually a vacant lot, doesn't live, there's no structure on the property. 2 of them are adjacent to what would have been the community amenity itself. And so essentially vote in favor maintains the status quo. That land would stay pretty much the same. Just want to point out too, with the talk about use of parkland in the amenity, there's currently a park up in the northeast corner of this area that is already there. It's just shy of 10 acres, and there's a statutory right-of-way that comes from Pixton Road. So there is some parkland already there. Christine Mutch earlier made a reference to the ALR guide to edge planning, which suggests that new traffic should be directed away from ALR lands, yet Sullivan, Ranch, Leak are all ALR with, farms that grow feed for their animals, lots of horses and cattle. One thing I wanted to ask about was with the possible alternate proposal. Just want to make sure that I'm clear that it was going to be still going to be 12 lots, but larger, more valuable lots, and the community amenity was going to be considerably smaller to make those lots larger. So that question can wait till the end. And one possibly related thing is right across the street, right Highland Road, is District Lot 1313. Now that's Gibson's. And if this got broken down into 12 lots of, much higher density, well, how could it not happen in 1313, the so-called Reed Road Forest? Anyway, that's enough for tonight. Thanks again for your patience. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Is there anybody else on Caroline's line that would like to speak for a second time before we move on to the next person on the list?
Next person on the list. Thank you, Lori.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Caroline. So next up, I have Donna Sugar and then Jim Green.
Thank you very much. I also want to say thank you, Lori. You've done a great job. It's been a grueling evening, and thank you. You've been very good.
Don't forget your address, Donna.
Oh, sorry, 1076 Crow Road, Roberts Creek.
Thank you.
This is a process question I hope Yuli can answer, and it pertains to the community amenity bonus. So I'm just wondering whether the analysis of its value happens before the board makes a decision on the application or after. It sounded like it would be done after, but it seems to me that that's kind of backwards. I would want the board to understand the value of that bonus in real terms, not hypothetical terms, before a decision is made on the application. So I wonder if Yuli could speak to that, please.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Yuli, over to you, please.
Thank you, Jen. That is not the question for me to answer. That is the question for the board to answer. So they have to decide whether or not they would like to make it a condition to have a evaluation of the land donation before they adopt the bylaws, or any other way they would choose to do. So that will be the board's decision to make.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that, and I hope that enters into the staff report and the public record, because I think that's a really important consideration. I said in my written submission that I doubted whether it really was an amenity. There's a lot of stuff going on that land already. The statutory right-of-way, the cell tower, et cetera. So I really question its value, and I think it's something that should be investigated prior to any decisions being made, especially if proposal number 2 is being considered and the amenity itself is shrinking. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Up next, we have Jim Green. And this is still our second round. So we have Jim Green, and then I see Burns Matkin as well for the second round. Anyone else who wishes to speak for a second time, please make sure you've raised your hand so you can be put on the list. If you've already spoken for a second time, you can raise your hand to be put on the list for the third round. So Mr. Green, once again, I'll ask you to introduce yourself as well as your address, please.
Hi, Jim Green, 679 Franklin Road in Gibsons. I just wanted to jump in and comment on the options, either the 1 hectare, 12 1 hectare lots that are under consideration, or the 1.75 and how that came about. So I think it was July, I had a on-site walk around with what I believed were members of the APC from Roberts Creek. There may have been other community members there as well. And before we did the walk around, we started with a discussion. And the question, and there was a lot of discomfort around the proposed lot sizes being smaller than the surrounding area, which everyone refers to as 5-acre lots. And then we sort of got into this hectare thing, and I said, well, they're 1.75 hectares or 4.3 acres, but we just agreed to call them 5-acre lots. So when we discussed the option of the 1 hectare versus the 1.75, I noted that in my original discussions with staff that we had proposed 1.75 hectare lots because that was what was done on the south side of Harmon Road. And that as we had our negotiations with the then staff that included Andrew Allen, the discussion moved towards just having lots on Harmon Road and then increasing the size of the amenity dedication. And that's where that application came in. And then in my on-site meeting, my last meeting I think I had on-site with anyone, I was asked to take a position as to whether or not we would go back to 1.75 hectare. And I indicated that we would, and I did note that that would reduce the size of the amenity dedication. And at that point, I communicated it to Yulee, or the planning department, as a summary comments on my APC meeting. And I would assume he got similar comments from APC members that were in attendance. So anyhow, I just wanted to give you, to the best of my recollection, how that happened. And I guess just in closing, the thing that's always befuddling to me when I listen to people object to this proposal is they seem to think that they're saving the ecology or, avoiding logging or potentially mitigating downstream stormwater management concerns. And I just don't hear those objectors acknowledge the fact that the property is currently zoned for logging. We're actually trying to rezone it to stop the logging. So I just hope everyone that's listening is clear on that you've got, community members saying don't change things and save the ecology, but the result of the lack of a rezoning on this will be the use of the existing zoning, which is for timber harvesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Up next, on the first round, we have Burns Matkin. Burns Matkin is the last person I have for the second round. If anybody else would like to speak for the second time, please raise your hand now. Otherwise, we'll be moving on to the third round after Mr. Matkin. So, Burns, if you could just once again reintroduce yourself and your address, and then you have your 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Burns Matkin, and I'm at 1920 Porter Road. And let me just answer a couple of questions for Mr. Green. He's a little puzzled on this, but the fact is that if you log a place and put houses on, it never goes back to a forest. Whereas if you log a place and let the little trees come up, it goes back to a forest. So once they put the houses on, once they put parkland in there, we're done with the forest part. So that's the answer to that. The ecology is, logging is not necessarily bad. It's what you do afterwards or what you do during the logging that could be bad. The next thing I want to comment on is just exactly who benefits from this process. The first thing is that the regional district says, oh, we're getting a lot of land. We're going to make a park out of it. And then we already been presented with the fact. By the way, this address is strictly to Andreas because he's our guy here, and I wanted to make sure that he's aware of where we're at. I also would say that the people that surround this area are unanimously against it. If you go to every address you see there and you put it on a map, everybody that's spoken tonight surrounds it and is against it. Okay, so let's go back to who benefits from it. If you had a park in there, the traffic's going to increase even more. So we have a higher density that doubles the population. We have there's nothing in the plans that say we're going to open up more roads or make them better or pave them or make better drainage for this. Our ditches are going to be somehow better. None of the infrastructure is going in. The only person I can see benefiting from this is Mr. Green and his development company. And after he develops it, sells it, pockets his cash, is sipping margaritas in Jamaica, we're stuck with the increased traffic, the potential for a very, very bad water problem. And we're also stuck with the fact that most of the parkland that SCRD runs now ends up as a dump zone for drywall because of the way everything's managed. There is no upside for the locals here. There is none. And I want to make that very, very clear that if we're looking at fairness and justice and equality across the board, there's just not any there. We're struggling to find some reason or some thing. I love development. Developing things is great, but it's not going to help the less affluent. It's just going to be a money-making process. And he's trying to scare us with the logging stuff. He's trying to do all this. There's no extra roads going in. It's not development. It's just a money grab. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Lori, for running this forum. And I hope you take this to heart, all of you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matkin. I have nobody else for the, pardon me, I have nobody else for the second round. So I am going to call a third and final time for further submissions on this public hearing process. So the next speaker I have on the third round is Lex Hansen. And once again, if anybody would like to submit a written submission that you have not yet done, you can email planning@scrd.ca prior to the end of this public hearing. With that, we'll go over to Mr. Hansen. And once again, please reintroduce yourself along with your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name's Lex Hansen. I live at 1919 Porter Road, Roberts Creek. I want to address a few of the things that Jim Green has said. The logging of Tom Wright's legacy, log trucks began at 5 a.m. in the morning in early January and ran through March, hauling the big timber out that Tom Wright had shepherded for all his years. So in terms of him suddenly being an environmentalist, excuse me, when it comes to the next 12 lots, he's going to have to clear them as well. This entire thing has been a sham from the beginning. We've had very little input. We've been denied a delegation. Jim Green has had 4 years to lobby and has been at all the meetings. We have read every minute of every meeting. We have kept track and we have been silenced. This thing has been patently unfair. It's an absolutely greedy land grab. It's going to be bad for the SCRD, and it has been horrific and terrible for us. It has fundamentally changed the nature of the entire area here, and the reason that I bought in and have spent my life trying to work on this place. So I am definitely not against development. I'm definitely not against logging. This thing has been awful from day one, and he's been a bad neighbor, period. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hansen. Once again, if there was anyone else on this third round for final submission, please raise your hand now. I have Cambria Logan. Cambria Logan currently is my last person on the speakers list. If there is anyone else who would like to speak for the final time, please make sure you've raised your hand. Otherwise, we are nearing the end of our time here this evening. Cambria, once again, please reintroduce yourself along with your address.
Cambria Logan, 2021 Porter Road. Just a clarification question. I've been putting a few things in the Q&A. I just wanted to make sure that that will be on record, those comments.
As I said earlier, those comments need to be brought into the public realm. So
maybe I could just ask them here then verbally.
Yes, please. Yeah. Okay. Yes, please do.
So just two notes. First, for I guess Yuli or whoever presents the summary slides, it would be great if you could, when you indicate the land gift, if you could indicate the portion of that that is already set aside for the right-of-ways, the cell tower, the transmission lines, because it did not see that in the proposal. It just sort of shows this wonderful 100-acre forest, which there is actually no trees in a large portion of that. My second comment was just about, there was as you stated, Lori, that the notification of this public hearing was in the September 3rd edition of the Coast Reporter. I believe Elaine already brought it up, but if we could just double check that, maybe you guys could double check that and amend the meeting notes if needed. I did take a look at the Coast Reporter. I have the September 3rd here, and I've been looking through it for 15 minutes, and I could not find any notice of this in the last edition of the Coast Reporter. So just wanted to get that on the record.
Okay.
Great. And thank you so much for chairing. Really appreciate you guys listening to us for the last 3 hours. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll have to double check on the Coast Reporter. I don't have any other hands up. Sorry, I'm just very quickly just flipping through the Coast Reporter myself. But we'll check back into that, Cambria. I have Brenda Sopel, and Lex. Let's see, Brenda. Hi, Brenda. If you can state your name and your address, please.
Brenda Sopel. I live at 1461 Henderson Avenue, Roberts Creek. I'm just wondering if that notice wasn't in the September 3rd paper, how would that change your public hearing?
That is a good legislative question, Brenda. I'd have to look to Yuli on the legislative process.
Thank you, Chair. So we will look into it to confirm whether or not the advertising was on September 3rd newspaper. So if for any reason that it is not, that means the required process by the local government act was not followed. And it will likely be a additional public hearing may be required in order to fulfill that administrative requirement.
Okay, thanks very much, Yuli. Also, is there anything in the process, because I know process is important in these matters, is there no process required in sort of notifying door by door the affected people? It's just a vague recollection I have that you have to go within 100, I don't know what the area is, but you have to contact the people in a certain area that are affected by this zoning change.
Yes, the planning and development fees and procedures bylaw requires the notification to surrounding property owners and occupants within 100 meters. And those letters have been sent to those people.
Do you have, I'm guessing in your package, there's proof of that?
Yes, we have that on our file.
And I guess I get that by freedom of information. Is that right?
Yes, you could make a request for that. Yeah.
Okay. Also wondering what traffic studies were done, because leak, I would say almost any intersection in Roberts Creek is very, very dangerous these days. Have there been extensive traffic studies done? And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to look through all the paperwork, but just curious.
Traffic and roads within the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Transportation, which has reviewed the proposal, and they did not require a traffic study. They indicate that they would not have objection for the proposal, except some upgrades in area like the intersection of Leak Road and Highway. So they did not require a transportation study.
Do you know why they didn't require one, Yuli? Because I mean, I know that's probably a question for MOT. And I know they've had a switch over in people there recently. Colin's gone and there's another gentleman there now. But I'm kind of curious because a lot of times anything affecting the highway or the amount of volume turning off the highway is usually a serious consideration. Just curious if you know.
I don't know. It will be based on the ministry's criteria. In general, for example, the size of development, the amount of traffic is anticipated, and as well as the statistics on accidents and so forth.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And just finally, I am opposed. just to say that I'm opposed to the the rural nature of the upper Roberts Creek area being changed to smaller lots. Obviously, as other people pointed out, the OCP has decided for Roberts Creek increase densification in lower Roberts Creek, and I think that's what we should focus on. And of course, once we change it, we can't change it back. And particularly concerned about the RU1 zoning, because I understand that may be allowing for sort of mobile home parks. Somebody's referenced the property at Flume Road there. That's gone from a residential home now having a bunch of manufactured homes or fifth wheels on it. So just concerned about that, and people should be aware that might be coming down the pike with an RU1 zoning, campgrounds and those sorts of things. Anyway, thank you. I'm opposed.
Thank you, Brenda. For Kaylee Muir and Cheryl Wilson, if you could raise your hand and then be brought into the meeting to ask your questions, please, that you've posed in the Q&A. And then I have Russ, and I also have Lex Hansen, who has raised his hand as well. So Russ, if you can state your name and your address, please.
Hi, it's Russ Proudman, Lot C, Furburn Road, I just had two quick questions, which I was concerned about. Number one, it's more of a procedural thing. When a report is created by the senior planner, most likely Yuli, from this meeting, are all the objections and approvals of whether you were for or against it that were registered either by written or email or vocal, does he total them up for every single SCRD resident, or does he just count them per property? So if there's 3 people in the same house, is that 1 vote or is that 3? That's my first question.
If they've all registered as registered objections as separate people, then they would be brought forward as separate people.
This came up in a recent meeting, so I want to make sure what it is. So
I will look to Yuli as the writer of the report on how that's actually written.
Thank you, Chair. So we generally don't do a very detailed count of the comments either in favor or opposed, but that is only in the planning report that will take the bylaws to the board for further consideration. But there is a public hearing report, which is a more detailed account of the comments received. And we will attach all the original comments to this public hearing report.
So if it goes, you're saying if it goes to a planning meeting, it's going to be by house, not by people, and you don't attach the information that people have sent you. Is that correct?
Well, how you will count, like by house or by the number of people, it is a matter of a method of analysis, and it is only an expression of the planner's opinions. And it does not reflect what has been submitted. What has been actually submitted will be included in the public hearing report as appendix in its original form.
If a report from this meeting said something like 30 people were against, and doesn't matter, 30 people were for, it's a big difference if it goes to planning and say 7 homes were for and 3 were against. I'm just trying to get an idea that, are we wasting our time by speaking independently as SCRD residents?
No, Russ. So what's happening, because this is a public hearing, everyone who speaks is given their voice, and that is brought forward. If it's prior to the public hearing process, then it's more of an analysis and it's not as detailed. Because it is a public hearing process, it is more detailed. So if you had 2 people from your house, one was speaking for, one was speaking against, those would both be counted. Same as if 2 members of your house were speaking against or 2 members of your house were speaking for, then staff would be bringing that forward and saying, let's say your house is 00 Sunshine Coast Highway, 2 resident and 2 different names, and the address can be the same as long as those are 2 different submissions.
Okay, then my second question, I see I'm out of time, but I've just been hearing.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, okay. No, go ahead.
Second question, I did not see the ad in the Coast Reporter, but if I did, does it actually show the presentation of like option 1? Did it say we're going to speak tonight on option 1, 12 lots of, certain size? Is that what the reporter would have had for an ad?
Absolutely. Yes.
Bringing up option 2 in the meeting.
No, let me reiterate. The option 2, it is only a request from the applicant to share a desire to address some of the feedbacks he received earlier. It is not part of the bylaw that has received the second reading, and nor was it part of the notification. It was only a representation the applicant wishes to make. to respond to some of the feedbacks about the lot size and the density.
But if I look again, I just looked at the report now. I can't remember what it is, whether it's attachment B or attachment C, whatever it is. I see there's two different attachments. There's two different options. There's two different attachments. It's either A or B. I understand you're saying he's offering something that he thinks might help, but it's now a polluted offering. You said it's A or B. It's not A. It's you've got it down there as one is one attachment and another one's another attachment. So it is not the original.
No, this is not this was not even attached to the original report for the board to consider second reading of the bylaws, nor was in any public notice or advertisement. So there is, if you look at the report again, the attachment only, because there are two bylaws. One is the OCP amendment. The other is the zoning amendment. So there are two attachments for the same proposal rather than for different densities. So
I understand.
If that's what you refer to as attachment A or B, that's two different bylaws, which one is OCP amendment, the other is zoning amendment.
But they weren't both known at the time of this meeting. For the 10 people who didn't join this meeting, not realizing there's a second option, they don't know this occurred. This only came up later on. So my question was, in the Coast Reporter, does it show both attachments? We're going to talk about this one, or we're going to talk about that one, or does it just show one of them?
No, the intent is to talk about the original proposal. So we cannot predict what the public will speak at the public hearing and what they will present. And this is only a representation the applicant wish to present.
Okay, I'm just having a hard time understanding it. If I have a property and I say I'm going to put up a 3-bedroom house, oh, by the way, option B, a 10-story apartment block, it's just not the same thing. But thank you for your answers.
Yeah, as I said, it is only a response from the applicant, and he wished to make a response to the feedback that he received on the original proposal.
I get it. I still think it pollutes it, but I get it. Thank you.
It is not including in any official documents. It is only a response or representation the applicant wishes to make to the public and share with the public.
Thank you. It's being presented at this meeting anyways, so thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Up next, I have Cheryl Wilson. Cheryl, if you can state your name and address, please, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, Cheryl, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Cheryl Wilson. I live at 1394 Tanager Place in Roberts Creek. Actually, I didn't want to go. I just didn't want to waste people's time because we've been sitting here for 3.5 hours. But my question was, I was just wondering if the surrounding homes did get that notification letter, the 100 meters within the 100 meters of the property. So I was just kind of curious if they actually did get that. And I'm actually concerned, just as a Roberts Creek citizen, that the OCP doesn't really seem to be worth the paper it's printed on, if it's being changed or steamrolled or whatever's happening here. And it does concern everybody in Roberts Creek. So I know I don't live in that neighborhood, but I feel like it sets a precedent for other possible changes to the OCP that's not worth the paper it's printed on. So it's very concerning as a citizen of Roberts Creek. And obviously I'm strongly opposed to this. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. My understanding is that the notification was delivered to everyone with a property within 100 meters of here.
Okay.
I I don't live in that area, so I can't speak directly to that. But that's the information I've been given, so I trust that. The other thing in regards to this is part of the process that we go through, so that makes sure before a zoning amendment or an OCP amendment is done, that we make sure that the community is heard, because sometimes this is just, it's part of a process with building and development, is sometimes these things happen. So this is part of the process, and the community has been very vocal, and which is their right to be so, and to be heard. So if you don't have anything else, I will move you. We'll move you back into the gallery.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Is there anyone else? I do have Lex Hansen. Lex, it will be your fourth time speaking this evening, but as part of public process, we are committed to making sure everybody has an opportunity to be heard. We are on our third and final call for submissions. So if there is anyone else, it's now or never to put your hand up. Otherwise, Lex will be our last speaker. Lex, once again, please introduce yourself with your address, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Lori. My name's Lex Hansen. I live at 1919 Porter Road, Roberts Creek. And first of all, I wanted to thank you and Andreas for hearing our heartfelt comments on everything that has happened previously. In terms of notification, I didn't get a notification. I'm within 100 meters. On the very first subdivision, the 8 lots, nobody got any information, and no signage was ever posted. I mean, these are grounds for legal challenges. I just wanted to thank everybody that sat in on this thing tonight, and you guys in particular. But it has been patently unfair throughout. Our current chief planner has advocated continuously for Jim Green's development against the wishes of the Roberts Creek Planning Commission, the Advisory Planning Commission. He, in every case, has tried to deny us a voice. We tried to get a delegation. We were denied. The developer has had 4 years to lobby unfettered. This thing has been patently unfair, and it's shaken the roots of democracy. There are people here that wonder if this process
I would appreciate, Lex, please keep your comments to the bylaw amendment or to the OCP, please. Okay. And no attacks on staff will be allowed at this meeting. I've had enough of that.
I certainly didn't intend it that way, Lori. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The fact is we weren't notified. Whatever the case, we just plain weren't notified. We had no idea those 8 lots were going in. So whatever the case, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And you understand how sincere all of us are in trying to protect what we've worked for all our lives in a beautiful place. This is it. I'm making my stand. I'm going to die here. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Lex. We have Carol Ann and Daniel Bowman. Carol Ann, if you can introduce yourself and your address, please. And then you will have up to 3 minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Carol Ann.
Okay. Carol Ann Glover, and I live at 1842 Lower Road. And I was on the walkabout with Mr. Green and a number of other OCPC and APC members of the community. And when the 6 lots, when the 1.7 acre or hectare lots were suggested, it was with the idea that it would be 6 1.7 hectare lots, not 12, as he had planned with the 1 hectare size. So we made that abundantly clear, because then he said, oh, but if I do 12 1.75s, it's going to take up way more of the parkland. And we said, oh, no. We mean 6 1.75. The other point I want to know about is when I look at the map that was presented, there's 7 lots along the 1.7 feature. There was 7 lots along Harmon and only 5 above. So it doesn't look like they could all be 1.75 hectares. So are the 7 along Harmon smaller, like less than 1.75, and then the 5 above are 1.75?
Yuli?
Yes, I can confirm they are all the same size.
So some must be narrow.
1.75. Well, as a possible, let me repeat, it's a possible alternative option, which is part of the applicant's representation. Thank you.
Okay. I'd have to look at that map you had again then, because they didn't look the same size to me. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you. And I appreciate that you people have worked so late. It's now 10:30. I don't remember any public hearing ever going this long in the past. Thank you, Lori and Andres.
Okay.
And Julie.
You're welcome, Carolyn. And I guess you weren't there for our Airbnb conversations, or pardon me, our short-term rental.
No, I wasn't.
I to share those ones too. So anyways, anywho, with that, I'm going to go over to Daniel Bauman. Daniel, if you can introduce yourself and give us your address, please, and over to you for a 3-minute submission. Dan? I see you're unmuted, but we don't hear you. Dan? Dan Bauman? I see your hand up. You are actually able to speak. You've been unmuted. Daniel? Daniel Bauman?
Did that get me on?
Yes, there you are.
Oh, figured it out.
Okay.
Thank you for your chat. Thank you.
Name and address, please.
Okay, Daniel Bauman, 1025 North Road, West Howe Sound. I live on Elphinstone. I live in Elphinstone, Elphinstone Forest. Of course, what has got my attention here tonight was the potential to protect forest, and I have in mind all the intense conflicts over many years over Elphinstone trees. So that's an important thing. But what I see here tonight is it's like a very traditional. I hate to use the word conflict, but I will anyway. Very traditional conflict between one side that seeks to maintain a certain status quo in Roberts Creek by maintaining zoning of large properties with single-family homes. And the other side seeks to get around the zoning by offering something that's interesting, which is the forest. Now, to me, what would make the whole proposal a whole lot more interesting would be if the proponents resolve the issue of water, which is that there's intense competition for groundwater flows everywhere on Elphinstone, and people have legitimate concerns about how the water uses of the development are going to affect their access to water. So I've proposed this kind of solution before, and I will probably many times again, but there's absolutely no reason that a house can't be built that would shed enough water to meet all the home's needs without the need for any diversion of water or drilling of wells. And if the developer committed to something like that, then, you know, we could have a much more interesting conflict in my point of view. But the world is changing, and I've listened to this whole discussion. I haven't heard a word about affordable housing or, you know, how we should be changing to respond to this desperate problem. So that bothers me that somehow this issue hasn't come up. But at any rate, it's a long discussion. That's my point of view. I think there could be a lot more interesting options in the proposal, which I'd be happy to support. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thanks, Dan. Okay. So that's the end of our speakers list. With no further comments, I now declare the public hearing closed for Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 310.182 2019 and Roberts Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 641.11 2019. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and participation at the public hearing this evening. I'd like to thank our staff, Mr. Uliseo, Ms. Genevieve Dixon, Mr. Bryce Beatman, and CAO Dean McKinley for attending this evening. Thank you very much, Director Ties, for being here as alternate chair. Do you have any words before we fully close?
I would like to give a sincere thank you for everyone that showed up and gave us your respectful comments, and they were recorded and we have them on. I think this was a good process overall. I know there's been some concerns, but I think we have what we need as a board to make a good decision. Now, if things end up being different because of local government acts and such things, then which I sincerely do not hope so, but then so be it. But I feel like we have the information needed to make a good decision as a board. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Director Ties. That's your area director for Roberts Creek, Area D. I'd like to thank you all again for being here this evening, for the respectful conversation and comments made. Thank you. And with that, we will see you. We are officially closed now. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening.